Douluo. Starting from the spirit of time worm, this video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 26, The Current Situation of Northland College. Why? Vidiel was a little surprised. He couldn't figure out why Amon refused. He thought that he was quite strong, and he had a city lord father to rely on. He had a background and ability. It was a win-win choice to cooperate with him. I should have made it very clear just now. The Northern Advanced Soul Master Academy is not a place where you can represent the academy to participate in the competition just because you have talent and ability. It is impossible for civilian soul masters to organize a team. You don't seem to have a big force behind you to support you. Before, there were also civilian soul masters who wanted to defeat the teams organized by other noble children, win the competition in the academy and win the qualification to participate. They are indeed capable, but before the finals in the academy, the team fell apart. Their members left the team one after another and joined other teams. Some were threatened, some were induced. So, if your goal is the Advanced Soul Master Academy Elite competition, there must be one person in the team with enough background. Maybe one person is not enough. Or, do you think I'm too weak and unworthy to team up with you? At the end, Vidiel's face also had a hint of anger. He thought he had shown enough respect and kindness to Amon, and he didn't think his strength was bad. In the Northland College, his talent might not be the best, but he was definitely one of the top ones. Amon smiled. I don't think you are weak and unqualified to be with us. I also think it's a good choice to team up with you. Vidiel was a little confused by the inconsistent statement. Amon continued, but I won't join your team. I will choose my own partners. My goal is not just to participate in the competition. Don't you think it's interesting to win a championship? Champion. Vidiel was surprised at his goal. The Northern Province is a region directly under the jurisdiction of the royal family. It belongs to the Shiandao City Division and has 5 qualifying places. To pass the preliminaries, you must get the top 5 results in many Advanced Soul Master Academies, but the 5 elemental academies are like a mountain in front of them, which makes the students of the Northern Academy unable to muster the courage to climb. Vidiel's biggest goal is to qualify for the competition. If he can perform well in the preliminaries, it will be even better. He never thought about entering the finals from beginning to end, and as for the championship, it is even more unrealistic. Amon nodded. Yes, the championship. So I need the dominance of the team, and I can't accept people who don't meet the requirements to enter. From your description, in the Northern Academy, the captain of the participating team should have a lot of power, because this is a team competition, and the captain is the core of the team. Ask yourself, if you are the captain, can you refuse those students who are on good terms with your family, but are a little bit weaker in strength to join? Vidiel fell silent. He shook his head. It's unlikely. I have to compromise. Amon said in a gentle but firm voice. Yes, it involves conflicts of interest and choices. Concessions and compromises must be made. I believe that the conditions for me to compromise will be more difficult to achieve than the conditions for you to compromise. I am not so easy to buy, nor so easy to be threatened, and there are no complicated things such as family affection, friendship, and family relationships to consider. It is not so easy to make me give in. As far as I'm concerned, your strength is already the bottom line requirement, but your bottom line seems to be lower. It seems that you are very confident. The champion. That is something I dare not even think about. Vidiel laughed dumbly. He glanced at Yan Jin and Lei Yin. His expression was a little helpless. If they are all talented, there may be hope in the next session, but I can't wait that long. I'm already 19 years old. However, if you really have the confidence to win the championship and show such strength, then the various forces in the academy will not break up your team. They will only try their best to send the outstanding students who meet your requirements to your team. Amon suggested, how about leaving the captain to the academy to decide? Okay, if you are strong enough, then you will be the captain. Vidiel nodded, with some expectation and ambition in his eyes. If possible, He certainly wants to have a better performance. Hey, golden hair. Amon agreed to your joining. Yan Jin has been paying attention to the movement here, walked over and patted his shoulder, and said with a smile, well, as for strength, it's okay. Vidial's mouth twitched, revealing a bitter smile. Yan Jin's words were hurtful, because they were the truth. In fact, after the conflict in the tavern, although Vidial affirmed Yan Jin's talent, he did not think that the other party had surpassed him now. He seemed passive in the tavern, because the space was small, and he could not play the speed advantage. However, after seeing the last scene of her sparring with Lei Yin, he changed his mind, and admitted that he could not beat Yan Jin. Maybe Amon said that I was the bottom line, or because I helped him hunt for spirit rings, he lowered some of the requirements, and gave me some face. Vidial thought to himself. After Vidial left, Yan Jin asked after realizing it, Amon, you are going to hunt for spirit rings here? Why don't you go to the academy first? Amon pinched his monocle. Maybe I'm overthinking, or maybe not. Anyway, I need to go to the academy with a better and more outstanding attitude. I originally planned to get the spirit ring after going to the academy, and I wanted to use the power of the academy to make hunting easier, as for now, the same effect can be achieved with the help of Vidial. Lei Yin looked a little solemn. Amon would not change the plan casually. The change in the plan meant that something unexpected had happened during this period. Those thieves. What did you say? Yan Jin heard Lei Yin's muttering and asked. No, it's okay. Lei Yin shook his head, looked at Amon and asked, do you need us to go together? Amon nodded. I don't have too many means of attack at the moment, and I need your help. Don't act casually when you reach the Ironheart Mountains. This time the target is a bit tricky. The eyeless snake is not a soul beast with low combat effectiveness like the slime. On the contrary, they are powerful predators. The 5,000-year-old eyeless snake is as powerful as the best of the soul sect, or the general soul king. Soul king? Lei Yin felt heavy pressure. He and Yan Jin relied on the special nature of their martial souls to fight against soul lords, but it was impossible for them to cross two ranks to challenge soul sects, let alone soul kings. Yan Jin also looked solemn, but said confidently, but since you included it in the hunting range from the beginning, it means that you are sure that you can take it down with the strength of the three of us. Although she didn't like to think much, she knew Amon better than Lei Yin, and knew that he would never do anything without confidence. Amon pinched his monocle and smiled non-committally. Chapter 27 Wind Tiger. When Amon arrived at the agreed meeting point with Yan Jin, Lian, Vidial was already waiting again. There was a large group of people gathered around him, dressed in various costumes, and they were vaguely divided into three circles. Amon, you're here. I am coming. Vidial enthusiastically introduced to the mercenaries. This is Amon, my friend, and another employer entrusting you this time. Hello, I'm Vega, Deputy Commander of the Northland Mercenary Group, and a level 37 War Spirit Master. On Vidial's left hand side, a sturdy man wearing chainmail and a horn helmet introduced himself. Deputy. Leader? Lei Yin was confused. Their leader is busy with other things, otherwise we would be more confident in this operation. He is a soul sect. Vidial said with a slight regret. Vega pointed to the man next to him who was not much taller than Yan Jin. This is my brother Tapper, Reach, Koman. The leaders of the two 3-person teams of the Jackal Mercenary Group announced their names respectively. Cauldron, Levi, Berini. These are 3 soul level lone mercenaries. Finally, Norbert nodded towards Amon and said, my name is Norbert, and I'm also the leader. Amon smiled and said, the eyeless snake that I have seen for 5,000 years can come back alive. It seems that you are very strong. Generally speaking, a soul master cannot hunt alone a soul beast that meets the upper limit of his soul ring. A 5,000-year-old soul ring is the upper limit for a soul sect to absorb, so the strength of a 5,000-year-old eyeless snake can be considered slightly greater than that of a peak soul sect. Eyeless snakes have strong sensory abilities and are ferocious in nature, with a particularly high desire to attack humans. Norbert shook his head. I just have a unique ability to save my life, child. Vega looked at Yan Jin and Lei Yin and frowned. Master Vidial, with all due respect, we are not going for an outing. That eyeless snake is very dangerous. We don't even have our own safety. It's absolutely impossible to take care of 2 more children. We are not here to have fun. We are also assisting in this hunt. Bear. Accompanied by the sound of burning, thick smoke rose, and the embers covering the magma's right hand gave Vega a strong sense of crisis. Making his hair stand on end, Yan Jin took back her martial spirit, and she used the most direct method to silence those who doubted it. The mercenaries looked at Lei Yin in unison, and the latter smiled faintly. The current twisted like a silver snake, followed by a faint sound of thunder. Vega nodded and said no. More. He has no ill intentions. On the contrary, it is out of an attitude of responsibility to everyone that he points out what is wrong. After discovering that Amon was not arrogant and that hunting soul beasts was child's play, he naturally had no reason to dissuade him. Ironheart City is not far from the Ironheart Mountains. This city was gradually formed due to the soul beast trade. After less than an hour's journey, they arrived at the foot of the mountain. There are no campsites here like those outside the Zilin Mountains, because Texan City has already assumed such a function. Norbert and Levy opened the way at the front of the team. Calderon and Bernini were on guard at the back of the team, and the rest surrounded Vidiel and Amon in the middle. Everyone was alert, but not too nervous. A great spirit master under Vega showed his martial spirit, which was a spirit beast that looked like a skunk. His first soul ring lit up, and a weak wave of soul power enveloped the entire team. Along the way, the snakes and insects retreated one after another, making the team's progress much smoother. Vega reminded softly, this can only repel ordinary snakes and insects, and can also make ordinary beasts retreat, but it has no effect on spirit beasts, so don't relax your vigilance. Norbert relied on his rich experience to find the clues left by Feng Xing, who, sniffing, snake, possessed. He used his martial spirit. Fine scales appeared on his skin, and his eyes turned into vertical pupils. Norbert kept shaking his tongue, which had turned into a snake letter, and relied on the traces he found to track the target. Amon also felt the professionalism of these mercenaries firsthand. Each has a division of labor and complementary abilities, which makes hunting a lot easier. Previously in Frostleaf City, the people sent by Ma went to help him use the most stupid method to try their luck in an area. After staying in the mountains for a long time, they led him to find the black male beast like a blind cat encountering a dead mouse. As he walked, Norbert slowed down. There is an open area ahead, with a large stone in the center. On the stone, there is a green and white tiger lying on it, combing its body hair with its tongue from time to time. The Feng Xing tiger, judging from the markings on its tail, is probably around 1,500 years old, which is just right for you, young master. Vega observed for a moment, and said to Bidder, very good, that's it. Vidiel nodded, satisfied. Feng Xing, who seemed to smell the danger, and became alert. It stood up, and looked around with its yellow eyes. This beast seems to have noticed us. Hurry up and use an enveloping formation to prevent it from escaping. Also, remember to hold back a little and let Master Vidiel deliver the final blow. Vega said softly. Then with his gesture, the mercenaries rushed out. Tapper's martial spirit is a bird, and he quickly flew to the other side to prevent the wind-walking tiger from escaping. A 1,500-year-old soul beast couldn't make any trouble under the siege of several soul masters, and was soon beaten to the point of dying. Vidiel, who was possessed by the martial spirit, cut Feng Xing, whose throat with a dagger. A purple soul ring emerged. Vidiel said with some excitement, help me protect the law. The mercenaries formed a circle, guarding the surroundings to prevent blind soul beasts from disturbing them. In fact, this is the goal that this trip must complete, because Vidiel is the one who pays. As for Amon's eyeless snake, they don't have high hopes, they just come with the attitude of giving it a try. It is not an easy task to kill a soul beast that is comparable to the peak soul sect. In the jungle, it is too difficult to catch up with the soul beast when it escapes. At least a higher level soul master is needed to firmly restrain it and prevent it from escaping smoothly. Relying on their numerical advantage, they were almost certain to defeat the 5,000-year eyeless snake in a head-on battle, but they were only defeated. After a period of time, the turbulent soul power around Vidiel gradually calmed down, and he successfully advanced to Soul Master. Haha, it's finally done. He laughed, with the soul power still stirring around him, that he had not fully controlled, and said to Amon, next let's go find the eyeless snake. That thing is difficult to deal with. You should be prepared yourself, right? Amon pinched his monocle and said with a chuckle, as long as it can be found, it can't run away. Suddenly, a scream of arcane pointer soul master on guard was taken away by a white figure that flashed in the jungle. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 28 Eyeless Snake. What? Everyone looked at the direction where the Soul Master disappeared with a serious look. Vega's face was even uglier, because the victims were his men. Maybe it was the Eyeless Snake. Norbert guessed. The last time I saw it, it was tracking the wind tiger, Yan Jin. Amon said lightly. I understand. Yan Jin took a step forward, and the rolling lava churned. Volcano bomb. Under the impetus of her second soul ring skill, the magma balls flew to the bushes in front. The scattered magma ignited the trees, and in an instant, the fire burned fiercely and tended to spread to the surroundings. Vidiel said hesitantly, is it not good to set fire to the mountain? It doesn't matter. There are so many soul beasts with fire attributes in the forest, but there are almost no fires. Soul beasts will instinctively protect their habitats, and if the fire is not too big, they will put it out. For us, this is just a resource acquisition point, but for them, it is their home for survival, because it is located in the volcanic zone. The continuity of the forest and the Ironheart Mountains is not very high. It is a small piece. We don't have to worry about it causing too much damage. And the forest has a self-regulating mechanism. When there are too many fire element in an area, water element will gather to offset the negative effects of the excessive concentration of fire element. What's more, Yan Jin's battle in the forest will inevitably cause some damage, and now it's just in advance. Amon had a gentle smile on his face, but the mercenaries on the side felt that this smile was colder than ice. A burst of soul power suddenly broke out from the bushes, and the soil on the ground seemed to have life, wrapping up the burning trees and extinguishing the flames. A huge white-scaled snake slowly poked out its upper body from a branch on one side that had not been affected by the flames. It has no eyes, two horns on its head that bend backwards, its mouth is black, and its scales are snow white, but the shape of these scales is very strange, like twisted worms. Amon's mouth corners slightly raised. This is his goal. Eyeless snake. Calderon frowned. Isn't this a little too big? After his reminder, the others suddenly realized that the part of the snake's body that was sticking out was so huge, and more parts were hidden in the tree canopy, making it difficult to see clearly, but its size was definitely more than 10 meters. Eyeless snakes grow 2 meters every 1,000 years, which means that this snake has exceeded expectations. Do you still want to fight? Vidia last point. If it can't absorb the spirit ring after the age, then hunting is useless. It's just a waste of effort. Now, it's not a question of whether we want to fight or not, but this guy has no intention of letting us go. It regards us as prey. Vega looked solemn. It just so happens that I don't intend to let it go. It's still within my hunting range. Amon pinched his monocle and said slowly. The mouth of the eyeless snake opened slightly, as if showing a mocking smile to Vega and others. It slowly climbed down from the tree canopy, its snake body winding and cruising. Weird but beautiful. When they saw its full appearance, the mercenary and Vidiel couldn't help but gasp. This eyeless snake is 18 or 19 meters long, which is very close to a 10,000-year-old soul beast. Didn't you say it was only 5,000 years old? Even if there is an error in visual estimation, you are too far off, right? Vega shouted at Norbert with anger. Norbert was also frightened by the eyeless snake. He stuttered and said, the last time I saw it, it shouldn't be this big. Shit, open your eyes and look. This is not supposed to be that big. You killed it. Don't panic. There are so many of us, and we may not be afraid of it if we join forces. Vidiel shouted, trying to stabilize morale. With so many people, it is not a problem to deal with soul beasts comparable to the Soul King level if they cooperate well. But the trouble is that most people have lost their fighting spirit when they see it. Even Vidiel himself was thinking about whether to run away directly. Anyway, as long as you run faster than your teammates, it will be fine. There are still 14 great soul masters. And he is definitely not the last one, but he quickly gave up this idea. This is in the forest, and running away will only lead to being defeated one by one. The eyeless snake is a soul beast known for its perception and sharpness. If the opponent is determined to kill it, it will not be able to escape at all. Don't think about running away alone. You should have made preparations before coming here and understand what kind of soul beast the eyeless snake is. In this huge forest, we can't get rid of its tracking at all. Rixie and Koman's eyes flashed, looked at each other, took a fighting posture, and recognized Vidiel's words. Damn beast. Vega cursed in a low voice, and then asked his great soul masters to prepare for the enemy. The eyeless snake slowly approached, trying to make the opponent give up the group through the increasing sense of oppression. Before it could make further threats, it suddenly stopped its body and swung its upper body to one side with the middle of its body as a pointer, like a pendulum. A flash of lightning passed by its body and hit the ground diagonally, leaving a charred area. The mercenaries looked at Lei Yan in surprise. They didn't expect that this half-grown boy would dare to take the initiative to attack. However, Amon sensed a little about the eyeless snake from its dodge just now. He saw clearly that when the white-scaled snake was dodging, Lei Yan had not attacked at all. It looked like Lei Yan attacked, and then it dodged, but in fact it made an evasive move first, and then Lei Yan attacked. It can probably predict the opponent's move half a second or 1 second later. With Lei Yan as an example, the mercenaries also showed their martial spirits one by one and launched attacks. They believed that they were not even worse than a child. The attackers were all soul masters with long range skills, and no one dared to approach this behemoth for the time being. To everyone's surprise, the eyeless snake dodged all attacks just right with its flexibility that was completely inconsistent with its huge body, and it didn't even make a single unnecessary move. Seeing this scene, everyone's face became more solemn. The eyeless snake wanted to continue approaching, but a burning pain came from its side. It opened its mouth, let out a silent roar, twisted its body in response, and moved a few meters to the other side. This skin is really thick. Yan Jin stood beside it, looking at the burns on its abdomen, dissatisfied with the results of his battle. The eyeless snake did not attack the human who dared to approach it. Instead, it moved horizontally for a long distance, coiled up its body, and took a defensive posture. Its brain, which was not very intelligent, fell into deep doubts. It should have been able to see all the dangers that would be unfavorable to itself in 1 second, so as to respond in advance, but it did not foresee the action of Yan Jin just now. This made it feel daunted. In fact, it was Amon who cooperated. When Yan Jin rushed over, he launched a deception on the eyeless snake, making its thinking sluggish and breaking the precognition, which allowed Yan Jin to succeed. The mercenaries could not believe their eyes. How dare she just run over and punch the other party? This is an eyeless snake that is close to the 10,000 year level. They were scared just by looking at it from a distance, but this little girl was not afraid at all. Facts have proved that Yan Jin is really not afraid. She is really brave. Turning her wrist, Yan Jin rushed forward straight. Chapter 29, Predicting the Future. The eyeless snake has no eyes. It relies on soul power to detect and perceive the outside world. There are originally 2 worlds in its mind. One is the current scene, and the other is the scene 1 second later. Others are affected by fraud and their thinking becomes slower, and the information received in their minds will be a beat slower, which can be said to be past scenes. For the eyeless snake, the impact of slow thinking is that the future scene overlaps with the present scene. It can still respond effectively to changes in the outside world, but it is no longer as sensitive as before. After Yan Jin approached the eyeless snake, the soul power fluctuation on his body suddenly increased a lot, from the original Great Soul Master to the level of Soul Master, or the level of 38 or 39. This is thanks to Amon's assistance. The time worm can parasitize other people's bodies and martial souls. If Amon is willing, and the parasitic person is willing to cooperate, then this is a kind of martial soul fusion. Martial soul fusion is originally a special skill with huge consumption, but there are many level 20 time worms in Yan Jin's body. They continuously provide soul power and bear the huge consumption point as the soul power level increases. The magma martial soul becomes hotter and more lethal point after the upgrade. Yan Jin can already fight against the soul sect point. The power of the eyeless snake is largely due to its ability to predict the future. After being weakened by Amon's fraud, it doesn't look like anything on the surface, but its combat power is greatly reduced. Big fire. This time, Yan Jin's attack was more powerful than any previous time, and even she was shocked. After a moment of hesitation, she laughed. Ha ha ha, Amon, this guy, he has such a method, but didn't use it earlier. The eyeless snake dodged the magma and opened its mouth to bite Yan Jin. The latter immediately created a large ball of magma to block in front of him, and he quickly retreated. Her second soul skill, soul power ejection, can act not only on martial souls, but also on herself. Whenever the dark mouth of the eyeless snake was about to bite her, she would eject and dodge. After chewing the lava several times and getting blisters in the mouth, the eyeless snake gave up the idea of swallowing Yan Jin. With a burst of white light, the soil around the eyeless snake suddenly became unusually soft, like dough. It turned over on the ground and rolled on a layer of soil. Then, with the addition of soul power, the soil became hard and formed a thick armor. The originally slender white snake turned into a brown, python-like thick snake. The lava bombarded the armor, but only broke a small hole, and it recovered immediately. TSK. Yan Jin dodged the whip of the snake's tail, and his face was not very good. Even the weakened and clumsy eyeless snake was still not something she could deal with. Lightning flashed, and Lei Yin, who also merged with Amon's time worm, condensed a thunder spear and threw it at the snake's head. The thunder spear exploded, but the effect was not very good. The eyeless snake just shook its head and recovered. Vidiel was stunned by the performance of the 2. He thought that if he held on to these 3 thighs, he might be able to win the Soul Master competition. There were still 3 years before the next competition. How far could these monsters grow in 3 years? You know, at the age of Yan Jin and Lei Yin, their bodies and souls were growing rapidly. As for Amon, nothing could be seen at present, but Vidiel was convinced that he was not simple at all. What are you still doing? Go and help. Vidiel shouted at Vega and others. Oh, yes, the mercenaries had even less experience, so when they saw Yan Jin and Lei Yin burst out with fighting power that was not inferior to that of the Soul Sect, they were more shocked than Vidiel. However, with the 2 as the main force to contain the front, they were not so afraid of the eyeless snake, and they all stepped forward. Under the siege of more than 20 soul masters, the soul power consumption of the eyeless snake increased, and there was a tendency that it could not maintain the mud armor. Opportunity. Thunder Dragon. Lei Yin seized the moment when the mud armor was broken by Vega's slash, condensed his soul power, and created a 5 or 6 meter long lightning dragon. The moment the thunder dragon left his hand, it arrived at the target. Boom. With the thunder explosion, the mud splashed. There was a bloody wound on the body of the eyeless snake. It suddenly turned around and rushed towards the forest without looking back. Except for Yan Jin, who created a lava wall to block it for a moment. The other mercenaries did not interfere too much and let it leave. When they saw the eyeless snake disappear in the forest, they all breathed a sigh of relief. The mercenaries had no intention of fighting to the death with this soul beast. They just wanted to leave now. What were you doing just now? Yan Jin was angry and blamed the mercenaries for not trying their best. Vega said apologetically, you saw that our siege was not without damage. 2 of my brothers were seriously injured by it, and our original target was only the 5,000-year-old eyeless snake. The one just now was obviously beyond the scope. He would put on such an attitude because of Yan Jin's strength. Most mercenaries are not good-tempered. If another employer spoke to them so impolitely, they might encounter accidents. Don't think you can get the full payment like this. Vidiel snorted coldly and chose to stand on Yan Jin's side. A fierce light flashed in Vega's eyes, but it quickly disappeared. He smiled and said, Master Vidiel, we didn't break the agreement. We helped you hunt the wind tiger, and we also tried our best to help you hunt the eyeless snake. If This eyeless snake is indeed 5,000 years old as you said. It must have been able to escape just now. Shouldn't we bear the responsibility for the wrong intelligence? After he said this, Vidiel turned his eyes to Norbert, whose face was livid, but he couldn't say anything to refute misjudge the age of the soul beast, and the gap was so big. Such a major mistake obviously could not be shirked. Since you are not going to continue, then leave. Amon pinched his monocle and chuckled. Vidiel frowned and asked, you don't want to continue hunting the eyeless snake just now, do you? Since I have encountered it, how can I give up? Amon nodded. But you also saw the situation just now. That soul beast is too strong. Vidiel tried to dissuade. I am certain. Thank you for your help. Our agreement is still valid. Amon said to him with a smile. After hesitating for a moment, Vidiel still couldn't make a decision to go with them. Then you pay attention to safety. We will evacuate first. Be careful on the road. After they left, Yan Jin muttered, what a coward. Yan shook his head. If I didn't trust Mr. Amon, I would have made the same decision as them. Oh, so then I will do the same. Chapter 30 Revenge. Vidiel and the mercenaries were on their way back. They made 2 simple stretchers with branches and vines, carrying 2 soul masters who were seriously injured by the eyeless snake during the siege. Norbert, remember this, half of the loss this time will be on your head. Vega did not dare to point the spear at Vidiel, and could only vent his anger on Norbert, the lone traveler. Humph, do you think this is what I want to see? The last time I saw it was indeed not so big. Norbert said this, and suddenly looked at a big tree on the side in horror. On the tree trunk, the abdomen was injured by thunder, a piece of burnt black, and the white-scaled snake, that was still dripping with blood, stared at them coldly. Although it had no eyes, its body as tight as a bow showed that it had locked the target. Run! He roared, and at the same time quickly distanced himself from this terrifying creature. The eyeless snake popped out like lightning, opened its big black mouth, and bit Benini, who was walking at the end. The latter was swallowed before he could even scream. Norbert could clearly see a bulge sliding down its throat and finally disappearing into the wider part of its body. A soul master was eaten without any resistance. This made the others even more terrified. Is this beast so vengeful? He didn't even care about his wounds and ran straight to deal with us. Vidiel's face turned pale. Shit. Vega cursed. Maybe we should have stopped it just now. Although they were terrified, the mercenaries did not sit still and wait for death. They all used their martial souls to fight back. Don't worry, it has consumed a lot of soul power and its injuries are not light. Ryuki shouted, stabilizing the somewhat scattered team. The eyeless snake did not entangle, twisted its tail, and disappeared into the trees in a flash. Only the still shaking leaves were left, making a rustling sound. Although they had repelled it temporarily, the group was not happy at all. The brief contact just now caused the team to lose a soul master, and the eyeless snake had only waited a little. They continued to move forward with a more cautious attitude. Not long after, they found a giant snake corpse of more than 10 meters in front of them. The corpse was corroded by stomach acid, but it could be vaguely identified that it was also an eyeless snake, a smaller eyeless snake. There were 2 human corpses next to the snake corpse. One of them had completely lost its skin, and exposed muscles and bones could be seen. The other was Benini, who had just been devoured. I said I was not mistaken. This is the eyeless snake I saw. 10 meters, exactly 5,000 years. Norbert pointed at the snake corpse and shouted, shit, that ghost thing ate its own kind. When Koman, another captain of the Jackal mercenary group, saw this scene, his face became even uglier. Is it demonstrating to us and expressing an attitude of fighting to the death? What does it mean? Vidiel was puzzled. Snakes have the habit of vomiting food when they encounter danger or strong enemies to reduce the burden on their bodies. Snakes without food in their stomachs are more aggressive and threatening than snakes that are full. Koman explained, look, the bodies of these 2 people and the snake were vomited out at the same time and placed on the road ahead of us. This means that when it was fighting with us in the open space just now, it had this smaller eyeless snake in its stomach and was full. Now, we are ready to leave, and it is not threatened. Why do you think it vomited the food? Koman asked in a serious tone. After a little thought, Vidiel said solemnly, For better hunting, yes, it wants to hunt us and take revenge, and it doesn't hesitate to vomit the food it has caught with great difficulty. Coleman nodded. Damn it. Vega cursed in a low voice. What should we do next? Yan asked. Should we just go into the forest and track it? It seems that we can't beat it with just a few of us. Do you have any interesting tricks that you haven't used yet? Yan Jin looked at Amon expectantly. I'm sure you'll be surprised. Amon smiled lightly. The eyeless snake is a soul beast with a strong sense of revenge. If we stay together with the mercenaries, it may be afraid of our power and dare not act rashly. But after separation, it is very likely to take revenge. So, this is deliberately showing weakness to the enemy. Yan pinched his chin lightly. Are we just going to wait here? Of course not. Let's go and find Vidiel and the others. Since the eyeless snake didn't attack us, it probably targeted the other side. Amon followed the traces left by the mercenaries along the waypoint. Not long after, he came to the place where Norbert and others found the snake corpse. This is. Yan saw the 10-meter long eyeless snake corpse and looked surprised. Cannibalism. It seems that what we just saw was not its strongest state. However, it doesn't make much difference. Amon glanced at Banina's body and confirmed that the eyeless snake was chasing the mercenaries. Continuing forward, he saw several more corpses along the waypoint. Some were pierced through the chest by earth spikes, some were squeezed into a pile of meat paste, and some were blue and purple all over, poisoned to death. There were not many traces of battle in the places where these corpses were located, indicating that they were all killed in an instant. Will the golden hair not be eaten too? If so, considering that he is our reserve partner, I will collect his body. Yan Jin muttered softly. Amon shook his head and said, it shouldn't be that easy. His martial spirit is a cat-type martial spirit that is famous for its quick response. The gem cat is the best among them. With so many cannon fodders around him, he can still live longer. Of course, if they die one by one, he can't escape in the end. Yan Jin vaguely saw a white figure in the forest. Without thinking, he immediately fired several volcanic bombs. The eyeless snake twisted its body and quickly disappeared in the lush trees. TSK, it slipped away so fast. Amon, we can't kill it like this. No. Hurry. The eyeless snake thought it was well hidden in the forest. It was the hunter, but it didn't know that pairs of eyes were watching it. They were insects with 12 links and star-like colors. Amon scattered a large number of time insects on the way here, and their tiny bodies were hidden in the branches and leaves. If the eyeless snake didn't turn back and fled into the depths of the forest, he really had no good way to track it, but it chose to take revenge on the mercenaries and plunged into the surveillance network set up by Amon. When they found Vidiel and others, the mercenaries had suffered heavy casualties, and even Vega's brother Tapper died in the snake's mouth. Seeing Amon, he couldn't help but have a little more resentment in his eyes. It saw you. It saw you. My brother died because you insisted on looking for this damn ghost thing. The lone soul master Levi, who had not spoken much, stopped in front of him and whispered, now is not the time for internal strife, and you should have been mentally prepared to embark on the path of mercenaries. Vega took a step back dejectedly. Sorry, I lost my temper. Chapter 31. Killing the White Snake. Amon ignored Wei's accusation and said to Yan, you can leave with them. Leave this to me and Yan Jin. But won't this be too dangerous? If it's just the two of you. Before he could speak, Yan Jin interrupted him. Don't hesitate. Just leave when I tell you to. Didn't you see that the big snake didn't come out when we were together? Okay. Yan shrugged. With Yan's company, the remaining mercenaries couldn't help but secretly breathe a sigh of relief. His fighting power was obvious to all, and he could temporarily fight against the eyeless snake by himself. The scary thing about the eyeless snake is that it appears and disappears at will. If someone can block its sneak attack and wait for others to react, then the balance of victory and defeat should tilt towards them. Watching them disappear into the bushes one by one, Yan Jin couldn't help but worry. Is this okay? Will Yan be okay? No, I promise. My martial soul split is still in Yan's body, and martial soul fusion can be carried out at any time. Amon comforted. That's fine. Yan Jin nodded. We are the only two left here. What new tricks are you going to come up with? Although Yan Jin didn't like to think much, She knew Amon very well and knew that he always liked to hide his abilities. If it wasn't necessary, he wouldn't let others know his abilities, even though she had been with Amon for 5 years, training and hunting spirit rings together. The number of times she saw him use his spirit skills was extremely limited. Letting Lei Yin leave also meant that he was probably going to show an ability that he didn't want anyone else to know. There was a rustling friction sound from the tree canopy, which was caused by scales scraping against branches. Yan Jin and Amon looked up and saw a white-scaled snake leaning over them, its tongue flickering, and the 2 darker areas under the horns on its head looked like 2 empty eyes. After Lei Yin parted with it, it judged that the combination of the 2 was weaker than the other side, so it changed its target. This is not a wise choice, because hatred affects one's own judgment, and then doing something that is against one's own safety is undoubtedly stupid. Amon said softly, as if he was communicating with the eyeless snake, and as if he was using this example as a counterexample to educate Yan Jin. In fact, the eyeless snake did not want to fight Yan Jin head on. If possible, it would rather solve this trouble by sneak attack, but in its future vision, no matter how it sneak attacked, it would always be stopped. So he gave up the plan of sneak attack and killed directly. Heh, stupid. Amon turned into a stream of light and merged with Yan Jin, martial soul fusion. And this time it was not the clone of the time worm that was fused, but his body and Yan Jin that were fused. In a starry sky like bright light, 12 rings rose, and rolling lava gushed out from the ground. After the vision disappeared, a man with long fiery red hair, wearing a monocle, and a slightly feminine face stood in place, with a mouth on his left cheek. Ah, what is this? Yan Jin's voice came from the mouth on his left cheek. Amon smiled and explained, this is the real martial soul fusion skill. It is the result of the fusion of my martial soul and your martial soul. Give me the initiative, and the battle will be over soon. At this moment, the soul power surging around Amon has reached the level of a soul master, which gives the eyeless snake a sense of crisis far greater than that of Yan Jin and Lei Yin before. But it is not afraid. One-on-one, it does not think it will not be able to beat a soul master. Molten lava keeps pouring out of Amon's hands. More and more. The hot magma ignites the surrounding grass and trees, and the flames are burning. The fire spreads quickly, which makes the eyeless snake feel uneasy. It takes the lead to launch an attack, rushing out like a sharp arrow, opening its mouth and biting Amon, but is blocked by a thick wall of lava. Even the scales blessed by soul power cannot completely resist the high temperature of the lava at this time. It feels a burning pain and shrinks back suddenly. Burning, burning, everything is burning. The surroundings are in a sea of fire. Lei Yin, Vidiel, Vega and others who had already moved away also felt the heat in the air. From a distance, there was a little red light in the forest behind. Too much. Vidiel whispered. Vega nodded. It's not difficult to understand. If burning trees can create a favorable combat environment for myself, I will do the same. He thought. Yan Jin deliberately burned the forest, firstly to make the eyeless snake have nowhere to hide and unable to sneak attack, and secondly to increase the concentration of fire element and enhance its own strength. In fact, Amon did not consider these. He just used magma normally, but did not deliberately avoid the damage to the surroundings caused by the magma martial spirit. A lava giant rose from the ground in the center of the sea of fire, and his huge figure was like a god or demon. Lava giant soldier, Amon, dared to hunt this nearly 10,000-year soul beast, and the confidence of the eyeless snake with the combat power of the Soul King also came from this. Yan Jin's martial spirit can continuously produce magma by inputting soul power. The more input, the more magma can be produced. As long as there is enough soul power, the destructive power of this martial soul can be said to have no upper limit. What Amon lacks the least is soul power. Even though he spread a lot of clones along the way as a backup for accidents with his main body and left some in Lei Yin's body, he still has more than 100 around him. The 50-meter tall giant looked down at the eyeless snake. The huge white shadow that originally brought endless fear to the mercenaries now looked delicate and exquisite. The giant's right arm was very strong, almost 2/3 the size of his body. The eyeless snake raised its head and swallowed the snake letter, feeling puzzled. It could sense the huge body, but it did not feel the soul power fluctuations that matched it. In its view, this giant seemed to be just an empty frame without much sense of crisis. This was the external manifestation of Amon using the first soul ring to steal his own soul power, which made it misjudge Point, but the next moment, it panicked and turned around and fled desperately. Point in its future vision, it saw itself being beaten into a pulp by a punch. The huge fist had already fallen down with a bang, like a meteorite falling from a high altitude to the ground. Point, the orange-yellow halo wrapped around the fist, dragging a long tail behind the arm. Gots. Fist crushes. The shadow enveloped the eyeless snake. Even though it had tried its best to escape, it still could not completely escape the coverage of the lava fist. Point, boom. With a deafening roar, the back half of the eyeless snake disappeared into the boiling magma. Point, even with the vitality of soul beasts, such an injury of losing half of its body is fatal. Point, the front half of its body was thrown away by the airwave generated by the impact and fell softly on the land that was burned by the flames and was already charred. Point, Amon broke away from the lava and walked towards the motionless eyeless snake. Point, he raised his hand, gathered his soul power, compressed the air, and an enlarged version of the air bullet condensed in his palm. Refine. The air bullet. The eyeless snake, with only the upper half of its body left, suddenly moved. It took the attack head on and rushed towards Amon desperately. Heh. Don't you pretend to be dead. Even the soul ring didn't fall. Do you think I will believe such a death? Amon showed a mocking smile. Point, he stretched out his left hand and materialized the soul power in front of him, condensing it into a barrier. The blind snake, which was already at the end of its strength, slammed into the barrier with a bang, causing cracks in the barrier. Amon waved his right hand and a grey soul sword appeared. Point, he removed the barrier, took a step forward, cut off the snake's head with one sword, and then cut the snake's head in half with another sword. Chapter 32. Advancement to Soul Master. A dark purple soul ring appeared on the body of the eyeless snake. The color of the soul ring was very deep, purple, and black. Point, a smile appeared on Amon's face. He turned around and whispered, Yan Jin, help me protect the law. Yan Jin was still in the shock of the lava giant soldier just now. He looked at the big crater made by one punch and then at his own fist, feeling a little dazed. Point, it wasn't until Amon shouted again that she came back to her senses. Oh, okay. But that move just now was too cool. She was in good condition at the moment. Originally, the soul fusion technique was a huge burden for the two people who used it. Basically, they would fall into exhaustion after using it once, but their consumption this time was borne by Amon's clone. Point, Yan Jin discovered another little secret about Amon. He had an abnormal amount of soul power, although it had been revealed before when she was assisting her and Lei Yin, inspiring and providing them with soul power. It was not as obvious or shocking as this time today. I asked, in the state we were in just now, could we defeat the Soul Emperor? Yan Jin asked. Point, Amon shook his head. It can't be killed. Although the attack is already at the Soul Emperor level, the movement is too slow, and a normal Soul Emperor can easily avoid it. Of course, if under special terrain, or under special rules, the Soul Emperor, even the Emperor, can't please him. For example, in the Soul Master competition. Yan Jin smiled. She had already imagined in her mind the scene of herself and Amon's martial soul merging, transforming into a lava giant in the competition, occupying most of the arena, and then punching 7 children. Hey. Hey hey. Ha ha ha. GGG. Isn't the champion easily within reach? Okay, stop screaming, protector. Amon had to repeat again. Point, Amon raised his hand and revealed his martial spirit. A translucent worm with 12 rings and a starry sky color was swimming in the palm of his hand. Point, following the pull of the soul power, the soul ring flew towards Amon, wrapped around the worm, and overlapped with one of the rings. A force came from the martial soul like a surging tide, filling Amon's body. The tearing pain tortured his nerves, and layers of murmurs also sounded. Point, dozens of time clones helped him share the surging energy, and the energy transferred from the martial soul was always stuck at the critical point of the body's absorption limit, allowing him to fully enjoy the benefits of the additional soul ring without losing the energy. Hence the injury. Point, after a long period of absorption, the energy from the martial soul gradually faded away. Amon opened his eyes, feeling the power of the body's improvement, and a trace of joy appeared on his face. Point, level 34. Amon has been settling down for a while at level 30. Although he has not improved during this period, his soul power is still accumulating. In addition, He has absorbed soul rings that are far beyond the limit of ordinary people, so he has been directly promoted to 4 levels. Every time the level increased, the control over the soul power brought by the first soul ring also improved. Amon soon fully mastered the rapidly growing soul power. The escaping soul power around him calmed down, and he returned to his previous state. That unassuming attitude, TFK, your soul power control, is really a monster. Even though it was not the first time he saw it, Yan Jin was still surprised. Having said that, your soul power is too much. Forget it, you don't have to answer. You won't answer anyway. My martial soul has the effect of storing soul power. It can store the usual soul power and use it at critical moments. Amon replied. Yan Jin rolled her eyes, her intuition telling her that it was much more than that. Don't believe all Amon's words, especially about his own abilities. Even if you see it with your own eyes, you have to think about whether this is an illusion deliberately made by him. Okay, let's go back. The noise caused here is too great, and it might attract stronger soul beasts from deep in the mountains. Amon patted Yan Jin's head. At this moment, the abyss of soul power suddenly descended, and a terrifying aura filled the air. Amon, Yan Jin, including Lei Yin, Bida, and others further away, all felt a breath that could make people's hearts stop. A sense of terror and oppression. Boom, boom, boom. The volcano that had been dormant for a long time suddenly became active, spewing lava from its mouth. Lava flows, pouring down from the top of the mountain like a tide, and volcanic ash blocks the sky and the sun, making it as dark as the end of the world. Run. Vega yelled. Damn it, didn't you say that the volcanoes in the Ironheart Mountains have not erupted for hundreds of years? Norbert looked in horror at the volcanic bombs that fell nearby from time to time, igniting trees one after another. With a panicked expression, Lei Yin looked back worriedly and whispered to himself, "Sister, don't worry, run quickly. Don't forget that her martial spirit is magma. This kind of disaster, probably, can't be withheld." Vidiel originally wanted to persuade Lei Yin to concentrate on escaping, but looking at the scene like the earth was shattering that day, he felt that the words magma spirits are not afraid of volcanic eruptions seemed unconvincing. However, when he turned his attention away from the volcano in the distance, he found that Lei Yin had already escaped for a long distance. Thunder and lightning wrapped around his legs, boosting his speed to a very high level. With sparks and lightning all the way, making a sizzling sound. Hey! The corner of Vidiel's mouth twitched, and he rushed. After possessing the martial spirit. Looking at the pouring volcano, Yan Jin felt more intuitively the development path Amon had planned for her. This is the destructive power of magma, the destructive power of volcanic eruptions, and the destructive power of natural disasters. But compared to this, the fleeting pressure just now made her care more. Amon, did you feel it? That just now, even Yan Jin, who had always been fearless, showed a look of fear on his face. Well, it should be some kind of powerful soul beast. Amon's face was also solemn, but there was not much worry in his eyes, because the big guy in the depths of the mountains was still far away from them. Yan Jin suddenly pointed to the top of an erupting volcano and shouted, "Look there, snake, such a big snake." Looking in the direction of her finger, Amon saw a giant snake entwined in the crater. The huge body was looming in the volcanic ash, and the magma flowed along its scales, but it could not cause any harm to it. It had a pair of curved horns on its head, and the red scales were like twisted insects. It looked very similar to the eyeless snake just hunted, but the difference was that it had eyes. Because the distance was too far, the area occupied in the field of vision was not large, but both Yan Jin and Amon knew that it was definitely an unimaginable behemoth. Generally, a snake of more than 10 meters or 20 meters long would be impossible to see at that position. "What kind of soul beast is this?" Yan Jin asked. "I don't know." Amon shook his head. Yan Jin looked at him in surprise. "There is something you don't know." Amon chuckled. "I'm not omniscient. How can I know everything? Although I have read many books introducing soul beasts, they only record some common soul beasts. This world is very big, with too many unknowns that we need to explore and discover. I do have some guesses." Yan Jin smiled with some pride. They were not nervous about the volcanic eruption. As long as they were not sitting in front of the crater to bear the huge impact, the magma scattered around the periphery was no threat to them at all. "Oh." Amon was surprised. The dragon-slaying warrior came to the Ironheart Mountains, where he saw the Iron Mountain Lord who lived in the depths of the Sea of Fire. He defeated the Red Lotus Serpent and used its scales to forge a sword of fire that never goes out. Yan Jin said in a chanting tone, "You heard this? Travel notes or legends from the tavern?" For a moment, Amon really thought that Yan Jin would occasionally read one or two eccentric books. Yan Jin shrugged. "But it fits this, doesn't it?" Amon pinched his monocle. "Indeed, sometimes legends also come from life, but this is a pleasant surprise." He looked at the giant snake living on the top of the volcano with deep eyes. Chapter 33, Suspicion. News of the unusual movement deep in the Ironheart Mountains quickly reached the city lord's mansion. A middle-aged man with brown curly hair, a high nose, small eyes, and a somewhat fat body frowned as he listened to the butler's report. Mel's a Soul Emperor cultivator, the lord of Ironheart City, and the father of Vidiel. "You said that Vidiel happened to go to the Ironheart Mountains to hunt for soul rings." "Yes, the young master has just set out not long ago. Calculating the time, he will probably be in time for this volcanic eruption." The butler lowered his head, not daring to look at Mel's expression. "He shouldn't have any problem. To hunt a soul beast that's more than 1,000 years old, you don't need to go deep into the mountains." Myers didn't care too much about Vidiel's safety and asked instead, "Has anyone seen the big red snake swimming out of the volcano? Can you still see it from more than 10 kilometers away?" "Impossible. This is absolutely impossible." "If so, how big must the snake be?" the housekeeper whispered. "Although it is unbelievable, there is more than one mercenary saying this, and they are far away from each other. It is unlikely that they are collectively experiencing hallucinations." "I understand. Go down." After the housekeeper left, Myers tremblingly took out a travel diary left by his family's ancestors from the bookshelf and turned to the page about the big red snake. This was originally his favorite miscellaneous book in childhood, but at this moment, it made him feel faintly afraid. He sat on a chair, rubbed his brows, and murmured to himself, "Is there such a terrifying thing next to Ironheart City? The legend that has been circulating for thousands of years is actually true." After a while, Mel stood up and put the book back on the bookshelf, and then wrote a memorial to report the existence of the serpent to Emperor Zuyi. Powerful soul beasts are also a precious resource, provided you can hunt them. Otherwise they are just a threat. Myers knew that it was something he could not handle, so he had no intention of coveting it. If the royal family sends someone to clean it up, then he can not only eliminate a major threat, but also gain the merit of reporting. In the Wuhanzi Hall of Ironheart City, a group of soul masters gathered together to discuss the matter of the big red snake. "That is definitely 100,000-year-old soul beast," someone said excitedly. "His Holiness the Pope is in need. It will definitely be a great achievement to report it, Sir." "Walter, what do you think?" the master of Wuhanzi Palace asked respectfully to the old man sitting at the head. Walter's hair is grey, and his face shows the vicissitudes of time, but his whole person does not have the feeling of old age. He looks like a handsome old man full of energy. "This is your business. You are the person in charge of Wuhanzi Temple in Ironheart City." "I have no idea about that kind of monster." Walter waved his hands, as if he was not very interested in it. "Do what I asked you to do." "Done yet?" "I have sent people to Frostleaf City." "Yes." Walter nodded with satisfaction, an inexplicable smile on his face. The carriage clattered on the cobbled road. Yan Jin was lying on the ceiling of the carriage, while Lei Yin sat next to the driver and looked at the scenery from the side. Several days have passed since the turmoil caused by the big red snake, and people are still talking about it everywhere in Ironheart City. This had nothing to do with Amon. After obtaining the third soul ring, he was ready to set off for the North City, but because Vidiel planned to go with them, he was delayed for some time. "You've finally finished cleaning up, Golden Retriever." Yan Jin sat on the roof of the car and glanced at the gorgeous carriage following behind, saying in a casual tone. Vidiel frowned. "Can you please stop calling me that? It sounds like a dog." "Okay, Golden Retriever, Vidiel. Well, he can't beat him, but he endures it." "What happened to you in the end?" he asked. "What else can I do? So far, Amon has never failed in what he wants to do. Yan Jin said matter-of-factly point. Although he had some guesses in his mind, Vidiel was still shocked when he received the other party's affirmative answer. You two worked together to kill that ghost. So Amon is already a soul sect? No, Soul King. The upper limit of the fourth soul ring is about 5,000 years, and the eyeless snake is extremely close to the 10,000-year soul beast. So Vidiel speculated that Amon was not the 40-level soul master he had guessed at the beginning, but a 5th-level soul master. The 10th-level soul sect, through absorbing the soul ring this time, has entered the realm of Soul King. A 17 or 18-year-old Soul King. I'm afraid that the geniuses among the geniuses who have become famous in Wuhan Palace are no more than this. Amon shrugged. No, I'm just a soul lord now. Ah, soul master? Vidiel was a little surprised. Are you kidding me? How can the third soul ring be absorbed for more than 9,000 years? I can. My martial soul is somewhat special. It can be split to transfer unnecessary and excess energy, to prevent myself from tearing apart due to being unable to withstand the huge energy. Amon replied with a chuckle. It is foreseeable that he will spend a lot of time with Vidiel in the future, so he selectively reveals some secrets that are difficult to conceal. Yan Jin curled his lips, knowing that Amon was lying again. Although what he said was the truth, others would only understand it in another way. Ah, you really just a soul master? Vidiel said with a bit of surprise. If it's fake, it will be replaced. This seems even more amazing than if he were Soul King, who can absorb a soul ring that lasts nearly 10,000 years when he is promoted to Soul Lord. Of course, since the splitting wastes a lot of energy, the quality of my soul ring will decline. It's not as scary as it sounds, but it's just a little higher than the limit of ordinary people. Amon explained. The third soul ring that Amon now has is actually about 6,000 years old. Although it can't compare to those of more than 9,000 years old, it is scary enough compared to the limit of 1,700 years for ordinary people. Suppressing the shock in his heart, Vidiel is more confident about passing the selection and representing Northland College in the elite competition of advanced soul master colleges across the continent. He asked another question. How old are you now? Probably more than 17, almost 18. Amon recalled and said uncertainly, it's a pity that this is the last session you can participate in. You will be over the age limit in the next session. Otherwise, our college may really win the championship. Vidiel was a little regretful. Northland College is his alma mater. If he can win this honor, he will also be proud of it. No need for the next session. We can do this session. Yan Jin sat up and said with a firm face. Although she didn't know how strong her opponent would be, it would definitely not be too strong. Otherwise it would not be a competition for young people, but should be renamed as a competition for the strong. There are still 3 years before the Soul Master competition, and she estimated that it would not be a problem for both her and Amon to reach level 10. By then, the normal state of the fusion of their martial souls would be the strength of a Soul King, coupled with Amon's unreasonable huge total soul power, summoning the lava giant soldier. In the narrow arena, even a soul saint could be defeated. Vidiel looked at Yan Jin's fearless appearance, and there was a little more smile in his eyes. He didn't know the power that Amon and Yan Jin could exert together, and only regarded it as a kind of momentum, a courage to not be afraid of difficulties and dare to fight. Chapter 34 Amon and -039 S third soul skill. Amon's third soul skill is called Decryption Scholar by himself. It also brings an active skill, as well as some permanent passive improvements. Passive effect: enhance perception, gain insight into weaknesses, find loopholes, foresee dangers, and be able to judge the opponent's next move through the target's subtle body expressions when activated automatically. It is a continuous skill that can predict the soul ring or soul bone skill that the target will activate 1 second in advance, and gain insight into the effects and loopholes of this soul skill. The effect of insight is related to the level comparison between oneself and the other party. If the target's level is higher than one's own, the information obtained through insight will be very little. With a smile on Amon's lips, the puzzle of his abilities is becoming more and more complete, and he is developing in the direction of secret Amon. Of course, Since this is a soul ring skill, after the Douluo localization, it is not completely consistent with the abilities of each stage of the Stealer sequence in Mystery. And a slightly different point he expected, that his next soul skill would give him the ability to fight head on, instead of being like now, where the serious soul skills were all for auxiliary purposes, and he could only rely on his self-created air bullets to deal damage. Amon stepped out of the carriage and looked at Yan Jin and Yan who were sitting on the rocks chewing dry food. The carriage cannot move all the time. It needs to stop every once in a while for repairs, so that the horses and people can relieve the fatigue of the journey. Vidiel also stepped down from his luxurious carriage. His carriage was much better than the one hired by Amon and the others. It was more comfortable to sit in without too many bumps, and the carriage was pulled by a black-scaled horse with a hint of soul beast blood. He found a flat piece of grass and spread a thick velvet blanket on the ground. With a flicker of his fingers, a pile of hot meals appeared on the stall. Braised pork elbow, roasted whole lamb, foie gras, caviar, sashimi. Yan Jin glanced at Bida's sumptuous meal and suddenly felt that his dry food was even more difficult to swallow. She swallowed and turned away from looking at him. Vidiel smiled and said, "Come here, everyone. This time I have prepared food for 4 people, enough for us to eat in Beatty City." "That would be disrespectful." Amon walked over to him and sat down cross-legged. "Oh, I love you, golden retriever." Yan Jin jumped on the spot, jumped high from the stone, and then landed lightly beside Amon. Yan also came over and said politely, "Thank you for the hospitality." After drinking and eating, Yan Jin touched his belly and lay on the blanket without any image. "I'm full." "Vidiel, how did you bring so many things with you?" Vidiel looked at Yan Jin in surprise. This was the first time she called him by his name instead of golden retriever. He shook his right hand, revealing the ring on his index finger. "This is a space ring. It is a special soul guide. There is a small space inside that can hold dead objects." "Huh. Is there such a convenient thing?" Yan Jin looked envious. Vidiel wiped the corners of his mouth with a handkerchief, looked at Amon and asked, "We want to form a team, and we need at least 7 people. Do you have any candidates for the other 3? Amon shook his head and said, "Not yet. Let's go to the academy and see." With all the outstanding students from the entire Northland province gathered together, there will always be a few who are good. Well, I will recommend a few when the time comes. Let's see if they suit you. Vidiel has already acquiesced to Amon's dominance. He was impressed by the powerful fighting power shown by Yan Jin and Yan in the battle with the eyeless snake. And Amon, who can make the 2 of them, especially Yan Jin, the troublemaker, be obedient, will naturally become more powerful. "Okay." Amon nodded lightly. After a moment of silence, Vidiel suddenly stood up and said, "Fight with me, beat me, and I will recognize you as the captain." Amon pinched his monocle with a smile in his eyes. "Are you sure?" Vidiel said seriously, "I'm sure. Although I guess you are probably an auxiliary soul master. When fighting the eyeless snake that day, it should be your credit for the 2 of them suddenly becoming so powerful, right? It's unfair for me, a fighting soul master, to challenge you, an auxiliary soul master, but since you want to be the captain, you have to show strength that convinces everyone." Yan Jin opened his eyes wide and looked at Vidiel with an expression of admiration and a bit of pity. She had challenged Amon countless times over the years, and every time she was beaten one-sidedly. Even with her strong nerves, she was almost shaken up. "Then, it's as you wish." Amon walked to the open space away from the road. Vidiel stood opposite him with some caution. "Vidiel, a 30-level agility attack war soul master." Vidiel introduced himself according to the etiquette before a soul master duel. Amon smiled and said, "Amon, a 34th level auxiliary soul master, level 34. Vidiel was stunned. "Didn't you just absorb the soul ring? You also know that the age of the soul ring I absorbed is a bit high. Compared with the risks, the benefits are also high, right?" "Indeed, it's enviable." Vidiel nodded and showed his martial soul, with 3 soul rings, 2 yellow and 1 purple, shining brightly. Seeing that Amon was still standing there relaxedly, and without any movement, he couldn't help but frowned. "Aren't you going to summon a martial spirit?" Amon just smiled and said, "I'm ready, you can attack at any time." Seeing him being so arrogant. Vidiel was a little annoyed. Then be careful, gem. Cat, possessed. Without further hesitation, he immediately activated the second soul ring and rushed towards Amon at an accelerated speed. Amon raised his index finger and thumb and aimed at Vidiel. Yeah. Bullet. Bang. A small pit exploded on the ground. Vidiel's eyes shrank. He avoided this with the good reaction and agility brought by the cat-like martial soul, but was forced back by more air bullets. The distance between the two was getting farther and farther. It's not that you didn't use the martial soul, but your martial soul, or a certain soul skill, can cover up the visual effect of the martial soul and the fluctuation of soul power, right? Vidiel said affirmatively. Oh, you found it so quickly? It took Yan Jin, that little fool, half a year to guess it. Amon praised. Vidiel glanced at Yan Jin, who was called a fool, and was grinding his teeth, and said, this is easy to guess. When you use a soul skill, even if it is a self-created soul skill, it is impossible that there is no soul power fluctuation. I felt the attack just now, after you launched it, so you must have similar skills, and the scope of action is only you. The soul skill cannot continue to affect you after leaving the body. Amon nodded. Yes, but the soul skill before and after leaving the body is two different concepts. You have enough time to react to the former, but it is often too late to discover the latter. This is just like dodging bullets. Maybe people with quick reactions can predict the landing point of the bullet based on the shooter's movements and dodge, but it is too late to dodge after the bullet is fired. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 35 Battle Results. A seemingly ordinary, even useless skill, combined with air bullets, can make most soul masters helpless. In the past, Yan Jin fought against Amon and was defeated by this move every time. Vidiel smiled confidently. Although it is difficult, I just have the means to deal with it. He rushed towards Amon again. The first soul ring lit up and a gem-shaped pale pink beautiful shield appeared in front of him, moving as he moved. The air bullets hit the shield, making a series of explosions. Vidiel frowned. This was different from what he imagined. His first soul skill, the gem shield, could dispel energy attacks, and it could also resist physical attacks, but he had to bear the impact himself. He originally thought that Amon's invisible soul skill was some kind of pure energy condensation, but he didn't expect it to have an entity. Haha, it seems that your method is not that easy to use. Amon smiled. The air bullet is a trick that uses soul power to gather air, and then wraps it and launches it. It is not pure soul power, so even if the gem shield dissipates the soul power on the surface of the air bullet, and the blasted air will still have impact. Amon increased his soul power output, stretched out his right hand, and spread his 5 fingers. A vortex seemed to appear in the palm of his hand, and the surrounding air continued to rush toward the center of the vortex. Air refining. Bomb. With a sound like breaking glass, the shield in front of Vidiel shattered into pieces, and then turned into energy, and dissipated. At this time, Vidiel had already rushed to Amon. 1. Such a thought flashed through his mind. Anyone who looks at Amon's attire and his fighting style will think of him as a long-range soul master who is not good at melee combat. When his fist was about to touch Amon, it was blocked by a white palm. Before he could react, he felt as Amon grabbed his wrist, threw him in front of him, and then kicked him in the chest, sending him flying. The physical control brought by the first soul skill, and the ability to predict the opponent's movements brought by the third soul skill, make Amon invincible in close combat. Vidiel fell to the ground, his expression still a little dazed. Amon's movement just now was so fast that, even after he was kicked away, he still didn't know how he did it. He just felt a black shadow flash, and then he lay on the ground inexplicably. I never said I could only attack from a distance. Amon's plain voice made Vidiel come back to his senses. He knew that he had lost, but he was still a little unwilling. I was careless just now. Try again. Let you see my third soul skill. Vidiel put his hands on the ground and did a backflip to get up. Before he could stand still, he was hit on the knee by an air bullet and he half knelt down. Don't Tell your opponent your intentions. We are still fighting. Vidiel was a little annoyed at first when Amon interrupted his handsome appearance. After hearing this, he calmed down, nodded and said, I have learned a lesson. The third purple soul ring lit up, and a layer of cyan light appeared around Vidiel. The light turned into spiraling blades, spinning around him. Be careful, this is my third soul skill, the roar of the Wind King. However, before he could take any further action, he saw a scene that stunned him. An air-refining bomb with a diameter of more than 2 meters has gathered in front of Amon, and the surging soul power brings a huge sense of oppression. With just one glance, he understood that, if he was hit by that head-on attack, he would definitely die. Even the aftermath of the explosion was not something he could easily take. He shook his head helplessly, dispersed the wind blades around him, raised his hands in a gesture of surrender. Okay, no more fighting, you win. Amon waved his hand and dispersed the air-refining bomb. This understatement made Vidiel feel that he was unfathomable. Amon pinched his monocle and said, then I'm the captain. Well, there is no doubt about your strength, Vidiel said with conviction. In fact, Amon's air bomb just now was just a fake. Even he couldn't gather such a large air bomb in a short time. He just deliberately created such a large vortex in the air, and then returned part of the expressive power of the soul power collected by stealing the first soul ring, creating the illusion of great momentum. If it is his real attack, it is often completed quietly. Yan Jin glanced at Amon suspiciously. She relied on her intuition and understanding of Amon to realize that there was something fishy about the move just now, but she couldn't explain why, and scratched her head. In the meeting hall of the Pope's palace, a woman with fair skin and perfect appearance stood in the center, wearing a luxurious black robe with gold patterns, a 9-curved purple gold crown on her head, and holding a 2-meter-long scepter inlaid with countless gems. She looked quietly at the old man half kneeling in front of her. Behind her is a colorful and lifelike mural of angels. The seraphs spread their wings and cast countless rays of light. Below, all living beings worshipped, and all species surrendered. The angel is right above the woman, adding a bit of mystery and nobility to her. This noble and elegant woman is none other than the contemporary Pope of Wuhan Palace, Bibi Dang. Ah, you saying that 100,000-year soul beast appeared in the Iron Heart Mountains? Bibi Dong's soft voice was filled with excitement. Yes, your majesty, it's a big red snake. The information coming from the Tixan City Palace should be correct. The old man replied respectfully. Elder GUI, as she called out. 2 figures, one black and one white, appeared behind her. Go, organize the people, and don't take those below level 70. Yes. Yu Guan and GUI Mary bowed slightly. When Bibi Dong gathered a large group of people and prepared to leave Wuhan City and go to Tixan Mountain Range, a voice suddenly sounded beside her ear. Wait here for a while, I have something to do. After saying that, she walked towards the Elder Hall. A tall, burly old man was quietly waiting at the door of the Elder Hall. What do you want to see me for? Kyan Daoliu, Bibi Dong said indifferently. You want to go to Tixan Mountain Range, so what do you want to stop me? Kyan Daoliu's expression did not change, and he said calmly, it's better not to go. When Jia broke through to level 90, I also took him to Tixan Mountain Range, hoping to give him the best. Don't mention that person in front of me. Bibi Dong gritted her teeth and whispered. Ignoring her anger, Kyan Daoliu tore open his sleeves and exposed his shoulders. This is the result at that time. Bibi Dong's pupils shrank. There were large burn marks on that shoulder. Although she hated Kyan Zunji's family, she had to admit that the old man in front of her was indeed the strongest person in the Douluo continent today. A peerless Douluo at level 99. What kind of terrible soul beast could leave such scars on him? Iron Mountain Lord Red Lotus Snake. In that environment, where the fire element is extremely active, even I have to be a little bit afraid. I don't want Zua to lose her mother again. After saying that, Kyan Daoliu turned around and walked into the hall. Looking at his leaving back, Bibi Dong fell silent. She sent a message to Yu Guan and GUI Mei. The plan is cancelled. Let's all go. Yu Guan and GUI Mei looked at each other. Chapter 36 Rejected. After several days of trekking, Amon arrived at BD City Point. This is the administrative center and economic center of the Northland province. It is also the place with the strongest military power. This is the pride of the Nords. It is said that in the distant past, when the Northland was not yet conquered by the Xiandao kingdom, this fortress held back the Xiandao army for 3 years. Looking at the towering city wall, Yan Jin exclaimed, "Wow. Is this the North City? It's more majestic than the Ironheart City." "This is natural," Vidiel said with a smile on his face. "I will take you to report to Northland College. It happens to be the admission season. Enrollment will not be very troublesome. Just follow the normal process." Amon paid off the driver's balance, walked to Vidiel's side, pinched his monocle. "I hope so." Under the leadership of Vidiel, they came to the office of the grade director. "Teacher Rona, I brought 3 new classmates to report." Vidiel opened the door and walked in without knocking. "Get the hell out of here, you bastard." A brown-haired man with a round face roared. "Tages, didn't you lock the door when you came in?" Rona arranged her clothes and got out from under the desk. Vidiel looked a little embarrassed, and he said sheepishly, "Sorry to bother you." After saying that, he closed the door, shrugged at Amon, and said briskly, "It seems we came at the wrong time." "No, you guys came just in time." Lorna opened the door and dragged Vidiel in by his shoulders. "What were they doing just now?" Yan Jin asked confusedly. Amon smiled. "Maybe it's the impulse from life instinct." Tages walked out with a dark face and said to Amon angrily, "Are you just the 3 of you who want to enroll in school?" "Yes." Amon took out the 3 certificates of outstanding graduates that Shi Guanteo gave him and said, "Is teacher Zeduo Jianming here? I have a letter from Dean Shi to forward to him." "Oh, Mr. Zeduo, I will go through the admission procedures for you first, and I will take you to him later. Lorna and Vidiel have something to discuss." Tages looked through the graduation certificate casually, and then he was stunned. Yan Jin, 12 years old, 28th level Great Soul Master. Lei Yin, 11 years old, 20 level Great Soul Master, and Amon, 17 years old, a level 30 Great Soul Master, is also very good, even more talented than that boy Vidiel. In his opinion, Amon was just like that, and it was a bit reluctant to qualify in the academy competition, but Yan Jin and Lei Yin had the potential to shine in the Soul Master competition and win honor for the academy point. Although Lei Yin's level is slightly lower, he is still young. If he works hard, he can participate in 3 Soul Master competitions. Tages looked at Yan Jin and Lei Yin and said, "Will you show me your martial soul?" The two looked at each other and then showed their martial arts spirits. The 4 yellow halos exude a faint halo, not shining, but beautiful. When he looked at Amon aside, he was stunned. The 3 soul rings of yellow, purple, and purple were floating quietly. Tages stared at the second purple soul ring and said in disbelief, "How did you do it?" Amon replied, "This has something to do with the characteristics of my martial soul itself, and I absorbed the second soul ring relatively late. I waited for my body to grow for a while before going hunting, so it also delayed the progress of my soul power cultivation." "Is this like this?" Tages held his chin and said, "The gain is indeed not worth the loss. In order to add a soul ring with a longer life, deliberately not to obtain it, and wait for the increase in physical strength, this is undoubtedly a waste of talent. Do you want to come to my class? I promise to give you the best guidance." He looked at Yan Jin and Lei Yin, and the anger at being disturbed had completely disappeared. Yan Jin and Lei Yin looked at Amon. Tages added to Amon, "You can come too." It was just incidental. Amon was used to this. This was also the case when Marwen invested in them in the past. The main target was Yan Jin, who was just a byproduct. He was able to reach this point so smoothly, thanks to Yan Jin. She was so good, and there were always people showing favor to her, and Amon benefited from a lot of resources. Of course, it was under Amon's guidance that Yan Jin fully utilized his talent, and the 2 of them succeeded each other. "That's enough, Tages, you bastard, don't compete with me." This was brought by Vidiel. "Of course it should be left to me." Lorna's voice came. Tages smiled and said, "Well, it seems it won't work." When he was going through the admission procedures for Amon and others, a voice interrupted them. "Wait a minute, these 3 people can't enroll. Our Northland College won't accept them." A man with a majestic appearance, but a short and fat body came over and said calmly, "Dean, why? Their talents are obviously very good." Tagus asked in confusion, "Because they have a problem. The one wearing the monocle is an assistant teacher of Bingfeng Junior Soul Master Academy, not a student. The other two are famous thieves in Frostleaf City. The academy cannot treat such scum revenue. It would bring disgrace to the college's reputation. Who are you calling a scum? Fatty." Yan Jin's eyes were full of anger. Lei Yin looked at him with the same indifference, ready to take action at any time. Although he is gentle towards others, he will not be soft on those who seek trouble maliciously. Be patient. Amon soothed. "Since we are not welcome here, let's leave first." After walking out of the academy, Yan Jin was still a little aggrieved. What bullshit reason? Is that fat guy trying to make things difficult for us? Wait a minute. Tagus chased him out and whispered to Amon, "That person just now was the first year dean, Zhu Yaozi. The reason just mentioned is just an excuse. The college will not examine this for admission. As long as you have talent, have a recommendation certificate, and have not done anything heinous, there will be no problem. Some small mistakes are nothing. Little brother, you'd better think about whether you have sinned against anyone recently. Someone should have spoken out, otherwise the grade director wouldn't just refuse talented soul masters to join." Tagus mentioned something and left in a hurry, as if he didn't want to have any more contact with them. Offend someone? Yan Jin frowned and pondered. Is it that golden retriever? He does one thing on the surface and another on the other. I have only fought with him recently. Yan Jin quite consciously put the matter of offending people on himself. Point among the three, Amon lives in seclusion and is busy practicing. Lian is gentle and kind to others. She is the only one who is either fighting or on the way to a fight. It's also possible that those mercenaries are angry with us because of the eyeless snake thing. Lei Yin guessed. Point Amon smiled and denied. Mercenaries don't have that much energy. If they want revenge, they will only do it themselves. Maybe it's that golden retriever. He deliberately lets others interfere and then solves the problem himself so that we can be grateful. Yan Jin speculated on Vidiel from a malicious angle. Hey, red-haired kid, it will make me sad if you say that. Vidiel came over with a somewhat unsightly expression on his face and said to Amon, "I've asked, but the dean won't let go. Don't worry, I'll work on it. Aunt Rona also has some connections in the college. I'm going to find out what's going on." Chapter 37. Walter. The sun has set, and darkness enveloped the earth. The pedestrians on the road gradually became sparse, and the evening breeze blew. The branches of the white maple trees beside the road swayed left and right, and the leaves followed with rustling sounds, as if they were laughing at something. 3 figures, one big and two small, walked on the empty street. Yan Jin and Lei Yin held hands, looking confused and helpless. They had just visited Mr. Zhuo Jianming, who was also unable to provide help. "I'm sorry, Amon. Maybe I got into trouble again and implicated you," Yan Jin said depressedly. She originally thought that the championship of the college competition was within her grasp, but reality slapped her hard. She couldn't even do the most basic admission, so how could she talk about participating in the competition? Lei Yin persuaded, "Sister, don't worry. The most important thing for us now is to figure out what happened. Believe in Mr. Amon." Amon did not answer, but just looked ahead. A man in a black robe and brown leather armor stopped in front of them. "Glenn." Looking at this familiar figure, Yan Jin shouted with some joy. Glenn looked indifferent and said in his low and hoarse voice, "I heard about you. You can't even enter the academy, so how can you help us promote the Ice Thorn Chamber of Commerce at the Soul Master competition?" The joy on Yan Jin's face gradually disappeared, and she said without confidence, "But it's all the fault of that fat man. We clearly no need to say any excuses pale. If you fail to fulfill the agreement with Lord Ma Wen, don't blame us for being ruthless. Just work for our Chamber of Commerce in the future." Glenn said in a cold tone. "Don't worry, Lord Ma Wen will take good care of Mori and the others. You just need to do your work with peace of mind." Hearing the threat in his words, Yan Jin was furious. "What did you say? Say it again, bear." Magma appeared on her fist with flames, red light illuminated the street, and a scorching breath began to spread. Glenn was not afraid at all, even though he was no match for Yan Jin, even though he was alone facing 3 geniuses who had already begun to show their talents. He still said calmly, before you take action, you'd better think clearly about what you are doing. Do you want to tear up the agreement with Master Ma Wen? In Frostleaf City, even Shi Guanteo can't protect anyone Master Ma Wen wants to kill. I will stay in BD City for a while and wait for your reply. I'm just here to remind Master Ma Wen of the agreement you signed. It is not a bad result to work in the Icethorn Chamber of Commerce. I hope you don't reject the kindness of that master. Glenn emphasized the tone when he said that master, and then turned and left. Looking at his receding back, Yan Jin clenched her fists and finally let go of them dejectedly. The fiery red glow faded and the magma extinguished. She looked at Amon anxiously and asked, what should we do next? For 5 years, they have been going smoothly and have hardly encountered any setbacks. A bright road is right in front of them, but they are thrown into the abyss at this critical moment. Although returning to Frostleaf City and working for the Icethorn Chamber of Commerce does not seem to be too bad, at least for Yan Jin and Lei Yin who struggled to survive in West Street 5 years ago, it is already a decent life point. But who can endure the darkness after touching the light if they go back like this? It can be foreseen that what awaits them is busy work, doing some dirty work in the dark for Ma Wen day after day, not much time to practice well, and eventually they can only waste their talents and be lost in the crowd. Amon pinched his monocle and said with a smile, what should I do? Didn't Glenn say it? He walked forward slowly. Yan Jin was still confused, but Lei Yin was thoughtful. After walking half a street, Amon whispered, we're there, HMM. Yan Jin looked up at the tall building in front of him with a dazed look and found that they had arrived in front of the main hall of the Northland City. Wuhan. Who is it? The guards at the door crossed their spears and blocked the way. Now, the Soul Masters have rested. Come back tomorrow if you have anything. A guard said. Amon raised his finger and the second soul ring was activated. The guard's expression suddenly became dull. Amon's spirit is considered outstanding even among soul masters of the same level, not to mention compared with ordinary people. Under this huge gap in mental power, the effect of the second soul ring is particularly obvious. The two guards can hardly think and cannot react to the outside world. Pushing away the spears blocking the way, Amon pushed open the door and walked in. Hey? We just broke into the Wuhan Hall like this? Yan Jin still has, or for the first Soul Master organization on the continent. In Frostleaf City, the Wuhan Hall is also the only place where she has not made a move. The lights in the hall were bright, and a middle-aged man in a black robe stood in the center of the hall. He had small eyes, a hooked nose, thin eyebrows, a thin face, and bloodless lips, looking a little gloomy. It's so late, and you come uninvited. What can you do? The oppressive feeling belonging to the Soul Saints suddenly came, causing Yan Jin and Lei Yin to take a step back and utter a muffled groan. I'm here to find someone who can make the decision in the hall. Amon said softly. The gloomy Soul Saint replied, I'm the master of this main hall. Amon's mouth corners slightly curled up and asked with a hint of deep meaning, can you really make the decision? Of course. The gloomy man suddenly laughed. No, let them come up. An old and peaceful voice sounded in the ears of the 4 people. The source of the voice could not be heard clearly, as if the person was standing in front of him and talking. Yan Jin felt that the voice seemed familiar. On the second floor of the spirit hall, they saw an old man with grey hair, but full of energy. He was looking at Yan Jin with a kind look, with an inexplicable smile on his face. Ah, it's you. Whoa. Whoa, what? Yan Jin pointed at him and exclaimed, it's Walter, Kit, we meet again. Walter said softly, I think you won't refuse me again this time. Reject? What? Yan Jin tilted his head and didn't understand. I thought you all guessed it. Walter smiled and looked at Amon. Amon shook his head slightly. I guessed it. Lian probably guessed it too. As for Yan Jin, who you have great expectations for, well, she is relatively simple at heart. You arrange the 3 gangs of robbers on the road, right? The Northland College refused to accept us, and Ma Wen's people seamlessly applied pressure. This doesn't look like a coincidence at all. Walter nodded and admitted it openly. Yes, it was me. I learned from Ms. Anglin that you have been very successful in the past few years, but sometimes too much success is not a good thing, so I want to give you some small tempering. Amon shrugged. Your tempering has made Yan Jin suffer enough. She probably hates you to death. Sure. Enough. Yan Jin's angry voice came from the side. What? Old man, this is all your fault. She almost didn't think about it, and she took action directly. Magma emerged from her fist, and heat waves rose. Big fire. Chapter 38. Become a disciple. Regarding the lava coming towards him, Walter just smiled and stretched out his hand, with his fingers spread wide. He inserted his fingers into the magma and blew lightly. The originally hot lava cooled down, and turned into a black, steaming stone. Yan Jin's pupils shrank, and he looked at the scene in front of him in disbelief. Child, you should learn to respect the strong. As soon as he finished speaking, a terrifying pressure swept over him. This soul pressure is so terrifying and violent, like a landslide or a tsunami. Yan Jin and Lei Yin were half kneeling on the ground under oppression, with cold sweat breaking out on their foreheads. They wanted to resist, but they couldn't control their bodies at all. Their legs were shaking uncontrollably. Even standing up was a luxury. Their hands were weak and their fists were clenched, not tight. Yan Jin's face was full of shock. She originally thought that she was a little master, but she didn't expect that she was not even qualified to stand in front of a real strong person. This pressure crushed her pride and complacency to pieces. She gritted her teeth and her lips drew blood. Walter looked at Amon, who was still calm in surprise, and asked, "You don't seem to be affected." Powerful soul power can oppress a person's spirit and body. This oppression is also a manifestation of the expressive power of soul power. When such expressive power acts on Amon, it becomes the target of his first soul skill. Theoretically, Amon cannot be affected by any soul masters or a point. In fact, the insects of time parasitic in the bodies of Yan Jin and Lei Yin can also steal the host's soul power expression, but Amon intended to let Yan Jin learn a lesson, so he did not help relieve the pressure they were under. Yan Jin was too reckless, and this punch made him feel nervous. I have special coping skills, Amon replied with a smile. Walter had no intention of exploring, and whispered to Yan Jin, "Remember, don't rush to attack a soul master who is much more powerful than yourself. It will cost you your life." Yan Jin curled his lips and remained silent. "Sorry, I apologize to you for my sister's recklessness." Lei Yin bowed deeply. Amon pinched his monocle, said TSK, and asked, "Then let's get back to the topic. Lord Walter, a big shot, like you shouldn't be bored and embarrass us, right?" Walter stroked his beard gently, looked at Yan Jin and said, "Of course not. This is tempering and testing. I have been paying attention to your growth. You are a very good child. You rejected me back then, but you also showed your character of valuing friendship. But everyone needs to bear the price of their own choices. Since you chose to refuse at that time, I will not provide you with resources or help you grow. What makes me happy is that even without the help of others, you still live up to your talent and still shine. Me, Zanglin reported your situation to me, so I set up this test. The robbers on your road were all arranged by me. They were operating in other places, but I caught them. I told them that if I could kill you, I would spare their lives. Your performance is satisfactory. No, it can be said to be amazing." He touched his palms and praised. "Yan Jin, now I ask you again, are you willing to be my apprentice?" Yan Jin looked at Amon, opened her mouth, but said nothing. After a long silence, she said weakly, "If I don't become your disciple, BD College will not accept us, and Marwen will too. Is it bad for my brothers and sisters?" Walter shook his head and said, "No, how can anyone force others to be their apprentice? I want to find a successor, not to cultivate an enemy. Even if you refuse now, Northland College will still welcome you to enroll, and the Icethorn Chamber of Commerce will restore friendly relations with you. I will not interfere with you anymore. What happened today is just to remind you that without any background, even if you have talent and ability, you may not be able to stand out. You need a supporter. Just like you asked Marwen to invest in you in the past, you can also try to make me your backer now." Yan Jin said a little stubbornly, "I already have a master. It's Amon." Thanks to his constant care, I can get to where I'm today. Walter looked at Amon, who smiled faintly. Even if Walter didn't find them, he would find a similar person. Now, Ma Wen can no longer help them, so Amon needs a new Ma Wen. As for whether the new Ma Wen needs to recruit disciples, trade, or anything else, Amon will not refuse. He is still weak, and obtaining enough resources and growing faster is his pursuit at the current stage. Walter's ability to take the initiative to come was exactly in line with Amon's expectations. First of all, this solved a hidden danger. He no longer had to consider the potential threat of Contra, who once wanted to take Yan Jin as his disciple, but was rejected. Secondly, the energy of a Contra is large enough, attached to its wings, and there will be no need to change its master for a long time in the future. However, this seems to cause a little emotional harm to Yan Jin. This is not unacceptable. Practically speaking, becoming Walter's apprentice would do no harm to Rock Ember himself. Yan Jin's interests and Amon's interests are bound to a certain extent. Amon pinched his monocle and said, Yan Jin, I'm just your mentor in the academy, an ordinary teacher-student relationship, not the kind of master-disciple relationship, where one inherits a mantle. Although I admit that I'm your teacher, I have never admitted that you are my disciple, right? At most, I have said that you are half of my disciple. The disciples that Walter said can pass on the path and continue the will. Do you think I need you to continue my way of being a soul master? But, Yan Jin's nose felt sore and his eyes were a little red. She really regards Amon as her teacher and the person she respects the most. Although she usually shouts Amon without any respect at all, deep down in her heart, she is very dependent on him. Ignoring Yan Jin, who was about to cry, Amon looked at Walter. Mr. Walter, the master chooses the apprentice, and the apprentice chooses the master. This is a two-way process. Are you really ready to teach Yan Jin? Do you have an idea about her future development direction? Do you understand the characteristics of her martial spirit? You must know that a master cannot impart his own power to his disciples. What is more important is the teaching of knowledge. Walter pondered for a moment, nodded and said, I have my own teaching theory. I'm not a research-oriented soul master, nor do I have profound knowledge. To be honest, I'm not very good at teaching in the traditional sense. However, although the master's power cannot be directly imparted to the apprentice, it can bring resources, and then use the resources in exchange for this power, to promote the apprentice's growth. This can be regarded as imparting power in disguise. Amon raised his eyebrows. This old man had something special. He used honorifics in his address. A very advanced theory. You must also be a very good educator. Yan Jin, I think under the training of Lord Walter, you can become a great soul master better and faster. When he said the second half of the sentence, he turned to look at Yan Jin. Yan Jin was still immersed in the loss of not being recognized by Amon. After hearing what he said, he looked at him with pitiful eyes and said in despair, if that's your decision, I'm willing to accept it. Walter saw that Yan Jin was still a little reluctant, but he didn't care. He was thinking about how to make her identify with him as soon as possible and willingly admit that he was his master after all. There are not many good young talents who can be compared to the golden generation. Yan Jin followed the ancient tradition, knelt on the ground, and kowtowed 3 times to Walter. Walter smiled with satisfaction. Okay, since you have become my apprentice, now, accept my first lesson. Lei Yan looked at his sister distressedly. He knew how uncomfortable Yan Jin felt, but Walter was so eager to act like a teacher, which made him a little angry. Maybe I didn't explain clearly in these chapters, which caused some readers to misunderstand. Walter didn't directly threaten her with Yan Jin's family. He just made others dare not show kindness to Yan Jin, cut off her friendship from others, and made her feel helpless without a backer or background. Yan Jin entrusted his younger brothers and sisters to Ma Wen, not only to ask her to help take care of them, but also to show his sincerity in cooperation. Originally, even if she couldn't fulfill her initial agreement, and couldn't participate in the Soul Master competition, Ma Wen wouldn't force her. Because Yan Jin is already powerful enough, forcing her to work under him may not be a good thing for Ma Wen. Ma Wen will still treat her friendly. But because of Walter's pressure, Ma Wen could no longer treat her kindly. So when Yan Jin couldn't enroll in school and couldn't pay the promised rewards, he followed the agreement and reminded Yan Jin to come to work. The safety of her family is Yan Jin's leverage and the guarantee for her to fulfill her promise obediently. In fact, Yan Jin and Ma Wen knew this from the beginning. As long as Yan Jin doesn't break the agreement first and return to Frostleaf City to work for Ma Wen, her family will still be safe. Therefore, what Walter vaguely threatened Yan Jin was not the lives of her family, but the bright future she might get, the life opportunity to stand out from the Soul Master competition. And this did not step on the bottom line. Moreover, this also strengthened the truth that Walter wanted Yan Jin to understand. That is, with a good master, your future will be brighter. Chapter 39 First Lesson. Walter handed a ring to Yan Jin and said kindly, "Take it, this is my first lesson." Yan Jin took the ring woodenly, followed Walter's instructions woodenly, input soul power, and took out the things in the ring woodenly, and then she was blinded by the golden light on the ground. The first lesson Walter gave her was a ring-shaped space soul guide and 20,000 gold soul coins, as well as a whole box of books about soul power, soul masters, and soul beasts. These books are hard to find on the market, and some are even secrets of some small families and sects. Walter used specific examples to further explain his teaching philosophy to the three people, and implemented his way of being a teacher. It's this: the master's strength can bring resources, and then use these resources to improve the strength of the apprentice, thereby imparting power in disguise. Amon smiled and said to Walter with great interest, "I have a friend who is 17 years old this year, with a soul power of level 34. He has been wandering for half his life, and has never met a famous teacher. If you don't mind." Walter shook his head and refused with a smile. Well, the friend you mentioned may not be suitable, although I have a certain purpose for accepting apprentices and there are some other considerations. I also hope to cultivate the relationship between master and apprentice. Your friend is too rational. He will only turn the master-apprentice relationship into a naked transaction. Walter knew that his behavior was suspected of snatching apprentices from Amon, and he also guessed Amon's reaction, which might be resistance or obedience, but he didn't expect that he actually wanted to worship a master. Amon smiled and shook his head, and he was not disappointed. He just wanted to see if he could get some benefits from Walter now, and it didn't matter if he didn't. Yan Jin looked at the gold coins all over the ground and suddenly felt less sad. This master doesn't seem bad. Well, he's just a little bit worse than Amon, just a little bit. Lei Yin was dazzled. He thought, let his sister be sad. Anyway, she won't be sad for long with her personality. It's estimated that she will be fine the next day. Please come to more classes of this kind. I'm sorry, Mr. Walter, you are a good teacher. I just wronged you. He apologized silently in his heart. So many things happened in one day. I think you also need time to calm down and think. Let's stop here today, Walter said. Walking out of the Wuhan Hall, Yan Jin couldn't help asking, how did you guess that he was behind it? Amon chuckled. The three gangs of robbers on the road are too targeted, and they happen to be stuck with our strength in the open, but it won't be too easy. The combination of the flame bird and the lightning turtle has a certain resistance to your magma and Lei Yin's lightning. It's quite rare that one of the third group of bandits can even resist my soul skills. Putting them together, it's hard to believe that this is a coincidence. Since then, I suspected that someone was targeting us behind our backs, but there shouldn't be much malice. When I arrived at the Northern Advanced Soul Master Academy, the attitude of the Dean Zhu Yaozi confirmed this. Then there was Glenn's warning. It was abnormal for Glenn to appear here, not to mention that we were ejected by the academy at noon, and he came to put pressure on us in the evening. Obviously, someone deliberately arranged him there to wait for us. Ma Wen knows part of our strength. Even the strength we are showing now is enough to compete with the Ice Thorn Chamber of Commerce. She won't be so unwise to threaten us with such a tough attitude. This will only add a big enemy to herself, unless she has a reason to do so. And if she really wants to force us to do something for her, it's not Glenn who comes, but Wasev, who has always been at odds with Yan Jin. In Addition. Glenn's last words. I hope you don't reject the kindness of that adult. Are hinting at us. The Lord he mentioned is not Ma Wen. He has always addressed Ma Wen as Lord Ma Wen. He can send 6 soul masters to us as whetstones. He can make the Northern Advanced College reject outstanding students. He can instruct the Icethorn Chamber of Commerce far away in Frostleaf City. Tell me, who else has intersections with us, has such great power, and is willing to spend so much effort? Yan Jin thought for a while, holding his chin, and said, it's really only him. She looked at Amon again. But, Amon, will I really be his apprentice in the future? Didn't you kowtow? I would rather be your apprentice, she muttered softly. Amon shook his head. This is a necessary compromise. I don't mind being threatened, but you can't. You have concerns and ties. When you first showed your prowess in Frostleaf City and were noticed by the Spirit Hall, you were destined to be unable to avoid him. You sure that he won't get angry if you refuse? Do you really believe his promise that he would not interfere with us if he was refused again because of some strategic goals of the Spirit Hall? They don't want to see talented spirit masters who are not under their control grow up. So, if you refuse just now, he will be more likely to kill us all. You have to remember, don't overestimate other people's kindness. Don't underestimate other people's malice. Many of the things he said to us just now are questionable. For example, he said that those robbers were captured by him from other places. Yan Jin looked puzzled. Is there any problem with this? It may be a real robber, or it may not be. As far as I know, Wuhan Palace has a secretly trained Deadpool. Amon replied. It shouldn't be. No, it was finally cultivated and used in a place like this? Yan Jin hesitated. Amon raised the brim of his hat and said softly, who knows? Human life is not valuable. You should have a deep understanding of this. After having so much contact with Ma Wen, I tend to believe that the third group of robbers is a Deadpool of Wuhan Palace, while the first 2 groups are more likely to be real robbers who were coerced and ordered by him. If those people are Deadpool, and if we are defeated and killed, it means you are just like that, not worthy of Walter's expectations. If we win, but let them escape, it means that your talent is not bad and worthy of him being a disciple. In this case, there is no loss to Walter. There's a third scenario, like now, where we win, and they don't even get away. This means that your talent exceeds his expectations, and he is willing to pay a greater price to accept you as his disciple. It also means that you must worship him as your teacher. Also, he said that he has been paying attention to you. This always. When do you think it will start? 6 years ago. Yan Jin blurted out, but with his understanding of Amon, he knew that he would specifically point out that there must be some problem, so he immediately denied it. No, that's not right. Amon put his hands in his pockets, nodded slightly, and said in approval, yes, it can't be 6 years ago. A contrast time is not that cheap. It's just that what he said, and before and after contact made it easy for people to have such an illusion. The start of always shouldn't be too long. Probably after you defeated the Soul Lord as a great soul master and your deeds spread throughout Frostleaf City. Everyone can see that it won't take long before you have the ability to affect the situation in Frostleaf City, and Mizangalan will definitely report your matter, and Walter, who once thought about accepting you as his disciple, will definitely receive this information. Is this like this? Yan Jin suddenly smiled. Sorry, with your help in the past 5 years, I have lived so smoothly that I have forgotten the cautious mentality I had 5 years ago. I will adjust in time. The temporary patience is to take off better one day. Remember today's helplessness. Although in terms of results, it is pretty good. Amon's eyes were deep and his expression was solemn. Well, I will work harder to become stronger until I no longer need to compromise or give in to others. Yan Jin nodded and then asked curiously, but, Amon, who is your friend who doesn't have a teacher? Why have I never heard of you? Amon's expression was stagnant and he looked at her suspiciously. Seeing that she didn't seem to be joking, he couldn't help but take a deep breath and didn't answer. Do you really think I have such a friend? Lei Yan covered his face and turned his head silently. to prevent her from seeing the smile on his face. That was almost unbearable. The atmosphere was a little weird for a while, which made Yan Jin confused. In the college, Vidiel stood in front of his Aunt Rona and said with some excitement, Why can't the three of them enter school? Can't they really think of a way? With their talent, they even hope to win the academy competition. Did Zhu Yaozi get kicked in the head by a donkey? Lorna said helplessly, I have tried it and contacted many people, but the dean just won't let go. It seems that the person who prompted him to make a decision this time has a lot of energy. Auntie, you know, I have to get a place to represent the school in the Soul Master competition. Vidiel said weakly, grabbing his hair. His position in the family is actually not stable. Although he is the eldest son, he has several younger brothers who are eyeing his position as heir. Therefore, he needs the honor of participating in the Soul Master competition and others' recognition of his talent. Since my mother passed away and my father married that woman, my status in the family has been declining day by day. That woman's son has been trying every possible means to seize my identity as the heir to the Viscount. Lorna patted his back and comforted him. I know, don't put too much pressure on you. Your uncle and grandpa will all support you. It's not that easy if they want to take away what belongs to you. If you want to represent the academy, you don't have to rely on those three people. I know Zhu Yaozi. He is the best at weighing the pros and cons and watching people do things. This time I used my family connections to put pressure on him, but he still refused and didn't even disclose any information. This shows that the person behind the problem is a big shot beyond our expectations. Continuing to associate with them may have adverse effects on you, so think about it yourself. Vidiel looked down slightly, with a trace of hesitation on his face. Chapter 40 Enrollment. The next day, when Amon and others came to BD College again, the Dean of Students, Zhu Yaozi, had a completely different face. Oh my, aren't these the three classmates from before? I'm sorry, it was my mistake before. I excluded you because of some baseless rumors. Now, it has been found out that it was completely untrue. I apologize to you. Zhu Yaozi bowed deeply to them and kept his posture very low. Haha. Damn fat man, your attitude has changed quite quickly. Yan Jin also wanted to taunt her, but Amon stopped her with his hand in front of her, interrupting her. Director Zhu, we are also responsible for causing such a misunderstanding. I'm sorry for wasting your time. Now that the misunderstanding has been resolved, shouldn't we also enter the normal admission process? Okay, Mr. Amon, it's great that you are so sensible. Your admission materials have been reviewed and approved. Do you have any other requirements for the three of you? I can make the decision and let the three of you go to the class you want to go to. Seeing that Amon was so easy to talk to, Zhu Yaozi was obviously relieved and said with a bit of flattery, the Northland Advanced Soul Master Academy is divided into 3 grades. Those who have just entered the school for less than a year, or whose soul power does not exceed level 20 are in the first grade. Those who have been enrolled for more than 1 year, and whose soul power is between 20 and 30 are in the second grade. Those whose soul power exceeds level 30 are third grade. The maximum age of students is 25. If they are over 25, if their soul power does not reach level 30, they will be dissuaded and will not be issued a completion certificate. On the contrary, as long as a soul power reaches level 30, you can choose to graduate at any time. Most people who are over level 30 will not choose to graduate immediately, but will still study in the academy for a period of time until they are close to the age of 25. Firstly, there are strong teaching staff in the academy, and secondly, for the continent-wide Senior Soul Master Elite competition. In addition, you can get to know more talented students and expand your network. Put us all in the third grade, in the same class as Vidiel, Amon said. Zhu Yaozi rubbed his hands, looking a little embarrassed. Is there any problem? Amon wondered. It's like this. According to the college regulations, you have to stay in the first grade for 1 year. It doesn't matter if you want to go to any first grade class, but Vidiel has been promoted to the third grade this year. The third grade is not my responsibility. Within the scope, Director Yu's consent is required. I think this is a bit difficult. Director Yu is quite rigid. She hates students who get special treatment through personal relationships. According to the information I received, you are already in your 30s. Even if you haven't stayed for a full year, it shouldn't be a big problem to go to the 3rd grade. But Yan Jin and Lei Yin, their soul power levels have not reached the requirements. She may don't want to let go. The surname is Yu. Is it the Yu I know? Amon raised his eyebrows. Zhu Yaozi nodded and said, yes. Director Yu's full name is Yu Xingsu, and she is a branch member of the Blue Electric Tyrannosaurus Rex family, so she doesn't have to look at the faces of most people, and even the principal has little restraint on her. Although there was a precedent for someone who entered the 3rd grade without soul power. That person passed a relatively rigorous test and was recognized by Director Yu. Test? Yan Jin raised an eyebrow. Isn't it you who wants to make things difficult for us again? She now resents the word. Zhu Yaozi smiled and said, how is it possible? The master told me to give you as much convenience as possible in the academy. How could I dare to disobey it? Huh. The old man's reputation is pretty good. Yan Jin doesn't have much respect for Walter at the moment, but Amon's analysis made her understand that there is a hint of coercion in accepting a disciple this time point, but she didn't hate it either. After all, Walter was really generous to her, and even though she didn't like studying, she seemed to fall in love with the class. Walter's teaching ability was unanimously recognized by Amon, Yan Jin, and Lei Yin. What? Test? Lei Yin asked. They came to Northland College mainly to obtain the qualifications to participate in the Advanced Soul Master College Elite competition. Of course, it would be more convenient to enter the 3rd grade as early as possible. Defeat a 3rd year Soul Master level student. Zhu Yaozi replied, well, this is not without room for maneuver. We hinted that the student participating in the assessment should be more cautious. To his surprise, Lei Yin and Yan Jin didn't look worried at all. That's it. Yan Jin crossed his arms in front of his chest with a nonchalant look on his face. Lei Yin smiled. The difficulty seems to be lower than I thought, as long as you are not a soul master like Mr. Amon. It seems that you two are very confident, and you are worthy of being cared for by that adult. Seeing that the two of them were so confident, Zhu Yaozi also had a relaxed look on his face. Just arranging an assessment. Yu Xingsu would not give him even this little face. Amon, Yan Jin, Lei Yin, what are you? Bidder, who was passing by, saw the 4 of them, and came over to say hello. Oh, Golden Retriever, our matters have been settled. The admission procedures have been completed, and there is only one assessment left before I can go to your class. Yan Jin chuckled. Vidiel looked surprised. Come to our class. Yes, I will apply to Director Yu for a special promotion assessment for these 3 students, and they will be classmates by then. Zhu Yaozi said with a smile. Vidiel felt that something was not right about the situation. Why did Zhu Yaozi refuse to let them enter school the day before? And now he started to get in trouble. He could detect Zhu Yaozi's friendly attitude towards them, even a little respectful. He didn't dwell on it, and he didn't intend to delve into it. He said enthusiastically, come to our class. That's great. I just got promoted to the 3rd grade this year. Our class teacher is the 3rd grade teaching director, Teacher Yu, who is a great beauty. And there are only 2 Soul Emperor level teachers in our academy, and she is one of them. Have you ever fought with other people in your class? How strong are they? Yan Jin asked the question that she was most interested in. I said, I just got promoted to the 3rd grade. Although I have been in contact with them for the team formation of the academy selection competition, I rarely fought head on. Vidiel was worried that Yan Jin would be careless during the assessment, and added, don't underestimate others. When I fought with you before, we were both great soul masters. Now you may not be able to beat me. The academy regularly organizes personnel every year to help students who meet the requirements to hunt soul rings. So the 3rd soul ring of 3rd year students is basically at the millennium level, which can greatly enhance combat effectiveness. Don't treat them as those soul masters who have reached the end of their potential. Those who can come here to study have good talents. When I was a great soul master, I could beat some soul masters outside. But if it were the 3rd year students in the Northland College, even those with lower strength, it would be difficult to remain undefeated. Oh. So, I think you are getting cocky because you have one more soul ring. Do you want to fight? Yan Jin directly invited him to fight. Vidiel shook his head and refused. You should focus all your energy on the upcoming assessment. Seeing that they were in a harmonious atmosphere, Zhu Yaozi said goodbye. I'm going to find Director Yu first. You two should get along well. Okay. Yan Jin waved her hand. She was still a little unhappy with the fat man. Chapter 41 Remuneration. After Zhu Yaozi left, Vidiel said in surprise, did I make a mistake? Which big family are you from? Zhu Yaozi can sit in the position of the Dean of Teaching, so he must be capable. Don't look at him like that. He is a level 59 Soul King. Yan Jin raised his eyebrows. Huh? I can't tell at all. Is that fat guy so powerful? In BD College, teachers are also divided into 3 levels like students. The level of ordinary teachers is between level 36 and level 45. At level 46, they can become silver medal teachers. After reaching level 56 and completing certain assessments, they can be promoted to gold medal teachers, and their salary and benefits will be greatly improved. In addition, if a teacher's soul power reaches level 61 or above, he can become a gold medal teacher directly without assessment. As the Dean of Teaching who oversees the affairs of the first grade, Zhu Yaozi is naturally one of the gold medal teachers, and he is the best among them. Sister, didn't you say you wanted to change your reckless style? Lei Yin frowned. Yan Jin said with a smile, hey, I thought about it again. Don't I have a master now? Anyway, he is very powerful and can handle most situations. There is no need for me to be too restrained. I should just do what I like. After that, she looked at Amon with a guilty conscience and said softly, Amon, well, I don't object. As long as you are happy. Amon raised his hand to adjust the monocle on his right eye. You guys chat first. I have something to do. He walked slowly into the distance. Mr. Amon. Lei Yin wanted to ask something else, but was stopped by Yan Jin. He said that because he didn't want us to follow. Yan Jin dissuaded him. After walking for dozens of meters, Amon stopped at a corner. He raised the brim of his pointed soft hat, looked at the restaurant on the right, and walked over. When he came to the second floor of the restaurant, Walter was standing by the window, with his hands behind his back, looking out the window. Mr. Walter, you suddenly sent me a message. Is there anything? Amon's footsteps were silent. He walked to a red high-backed chair and sat on it. What is Yan Jin's attitude now? Amon laughed. You said she, not good, but not bad. She hated your so-called test before, but she didn't reject being your apprentice. It's good that she doesn't reject it. Sooner or later, she will sincerely accept me. Walter smiled. I want to ask you for a favor. Help? As I said before, I'm not very good at teaching others. I don't have rich theoretical knowledge. I can get to where I'm today because I have struggled countless times in the face of life and death crisis. Walter said with a sigh and some emotion, I would like to ask you to continue to teach Yan Jin in the future. Amon leaned back slightly, leaning against the back of the chair, and said in a flat tone, you should know that, even if you don't say it, I will do it. She is my teammate in the Soul Master competition. That's why I have to say that I hope you can consider her from a more distant future. Don't give up growth for the sake of temporary combat effectiveness when choosing soul rings. She can go a long way on the road of soul masters, farther than me. Walter said seriously. In addition, try to choose the best when hunting soul beasts. If the number is scarce, I can send people to find them. If they are strong, I can help them, or even ask others to help them. High risks must have higher returns. Walter's past experience has always made him believe in this principal point. Since Yan Jin passed the test of death if she failed, and was recognized by him, he would give her the corresponding treatment point. And since she was not informed of this test in advance, and he arranged it without authorization, he had to invest more on the basis of the original, to make up for it. I am not a short-sighted person. The plan for her soul ring is based on the assumption that she can become a titled Douluo in the future. What's more, she doesn't lack that little fighting power. Amon chuckled and said in a somewhat yin and yang tone, "But Mr. Walter, you took the student who was considered half of my disciple as your own disciple, and threw it to me to teach." Walter's old face flushed, and after a moment of silence, he covered up the embarrassment just now, and said in a voice as calm as possible, "This is a recognition of your teaching ability. I will pay you. You are a soul master now, right? US 4th and 5th soul rings. I can assist, and personally help you hunt. A promise from Soul Douluo. Very generous conditions." Amon put his left leg on his right leg, and changed the subject. "Before, I thought you would let us all join the spirit hall." Walter smiled. "It's not the time yet. I know you want to show yourself in the Soul Master competition, and the personnel of the Spirit Hall participating team have been decided. The golden generation is not so easy to surpass, and they represent not only themselves, but also the people who support them behind them. Even if there were no members of their own forces, they should have them now." Amon took off his glasses, wiped them with a handkerchief, and put them back on, like Yan Jin, who showed his talent. Yes, like Yan Jin, who was originally just a civilian soul master, but now I'm behind him. Walter nodded and continued, "If you join the Spirit Hall and want to replace some of them, you must not only show strength far stronger than them, but also play a game with the people behind them. That's really troublesome." Amon nodded. "What about Yan? He has good talent. Don't you consider it?" Amon was happy to see Yan Jin accepted as Walter's apprentice. This is good for everyone. Yan Jin got a master who can give her resources, and Walter got a good apprentice who can inherit his legacy and surpass himself. And Amon can also share a lot of benefits from it. He can get in touch with a soul fighter through this connection. In fact, from the beginning, he was selling Yan Jin's talent, and he did so when he asked Ma when to invest, and he also asked Yan Jin to become a disciple. Whether it was to guide Yan Jin to further develop her talent, or to show that he wanted to participate in the Soul Master competition, Amon's fundamental purpose was to obtain resources, to help himself grow better and faster. He only cares about himself. Of course, if he can benefit, he doesn't mind winning with others. Walter hesitated for a moment, then shook his head slowly and said, "No, it's enough to have a disciple who is worth my efforts and full training." Northern Advanced Soul Master Academy, Grade 3 Teaching Building, Grade Director's Office. There was a knock on the door. "It's Director Yu here." "You." Xingsu was wearing a white long skirt, half lying lazily on the sofa. Her beautiful face showed a trace of confusion. She yawned, as if she had not yet fully awakened from her sleep. "Director Yu, ZHU. Yao's voice gave her a start and completely woke her up. It was still working time. "You can't be so decadent." She quickly got up, tidied her clothes, and patted her face with both hands. After adjusting her posture, she said calmly, "Come in." "Good afternoon, ZHU Yao's." He walked into the room and said softly. Yu Xingsu frowned. "What do you want to see me about? Whose young master is this?" "She is the best teacher in the academy, leading the best class, and people often ask for help to put their children in her class. In fact, she is not opposed to doing so, but if you want to put someone in, you should at least see what kind of quality they are. It is not a big problem if the talent is slightly worse, but you can't have a bad style, which will only spoil the atmosphere of the whole class." And ZHU Yao's, he often helps some nobles to put people in, and the most important thing is that he never looks at the students. As long as the relationship is in place or the money is in place, he will come. This makes her have no good impression of ZHU Yaozi, but she doesn't hate him. She knows that as the supervisor of the first grade of the academy, he is also responsible for welcoming and seeing off, and some interpersonal exchanges are indispensable. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 42. Using Su. I would like to ask you to help arrange for 3 students. ZHU Yao's, he went straight to the point. "Huh? There are 3 of you here?" A look of displeasure appeared on Yu Xingsu's face. "This is not a garbage recycling station. Don't throw harmful garbage in. Okay, I admit that I was a little unqualified in bringing people in the past, but I have never interfered with your decision, right? ZHU. Yowzi shrugged. I just brought people here before, and it was up to you whether to accept them or not. He paused, then changed to a serious tone, and continued, but I hope that these 3 people this time, regardless of their talents or styles, can be included in your class. It's a big deal? Yu Xingsu frowned nicely. Contrat himself spoke. Is it related to that kind of big shot? Yu Xingsu felt a headache. Okay, I understand. I will take care of it. She waved her hand to indicate that she understood. Nothing else. You can leave. ZHU. Yowzi smiled and nodded. I'll trouble you, Director Yu. In fact, Yu Xingsu is not difficult to talk to, and she is not a stupid person who doesn't understand the world point. But if he didn't make things more difficult, how could he let Amon and Yan Jin know that he did his best? Oh, by the way, tell them that, if they are free, they can come over today to participate in the assessment. When ZHU Yowzi was about to leave, Yu Xingsu said to him, okay, I'll go and notify them right away. When ZHU Yowzi found Yan Jin and others, Amon had also ended his conversation with Walter and returned to them. Classmate. Amen. I have already agreed with Director Yu that you can go over for the test in a moment. ZHU Yowzi said with a warm smile on his face. He didn't know the specific relationship between the 3 of them and Walter, but since Contrat had spoken out in person and had gone to such great lengths to get them to hit the wall first and then facilitated them, this meant that the relationship was definitely not shallow. He guessed that one of them was Walter's direct junior. The young man was arrogant and at odds with his family, so he ran away secretly. Then, in order to let them know that society is dangerous, Walter deliberately stumbled and taught them a lesson. Student Vidial, please take them there. It's the beginning of the school year, and I still have many things to deal with. Okay, leave it to me. Vidial nodded. Hey, I don't know what kind of opponent I will be. The genius soul master from Northland College. I'm really looking forward to it. Yan Jin was eager to try, and her competitiveness was ingrained in her bones. When they arrived at the 3rd grade teaching building, they saw a woman with a lazy temperament wearing a white skirt looking down from the 2nd floor window. She leaned out half of her body and put her hands on the windowsill jaw. Teacher Yu. Vidial saw that her eyes were staring at his group, and he felt a little nervous for some reason. You are a boy from the Myers family. You just joined our class this year. Haha, I heard that you are very ambitious. You have been preparing to form a participating team since 2 years ago. Yu Xingsu glanced at the peaceful Amon again and asked, who are the 3 of them? Vidial replied, Director ZHU should have told you that they are the people participating in the assessment today. Oh, that's it. You go to the training ground first. I'll be there in a moment. Seeing that it was the 3 people brought by Vidial, she changed her mind about letting them go and planned to explore their background. She knew that Vidial was actively preparing for the Soul Master competition and often deliberately contacted some talented students. Since he brought it here and he seems to be enjoying it, it means that this is probably a goal that he is optimistic about and is ready to recruit into the team. So the talent should not be bad. She came to the class and interrupted the ongoing class. Sorry to take up a moment, she said to the middle-aged man wearing black clothes on the podium. It's okay, just tell me if you have anything to do. The teacher in black said with a smile. Yu Xingsu clapped her palms twice, and then Lanxus said, everyone pause for a moment and listen to me. Today, 3 freshmen who just entered the school said through certain channels that they wanted to come to our class, so I need 3 examiners to test their strength. Are there any classmates who have volunteered? There was a boy with short straight hair and a slightly longer hair hanging down in front of his forehead. He was dressed in black and white clothes and held the back of his head with his hands. He leaned back and asked casually, Teacher Yu, are you a junior or a junior? Are you pretty? Are you single? Yu Xingsu laughed dumbly. I'm asking you to be an examiner, not a blind date. There are 2 boys and 1 girl. One of the boys is older, maybe 17 or 18 years old. The other 2 are children. They look 10 years old. Early years old. TCH. Kit, that's boring. The boy in black and white clothes immediately lost interest. Teacher, do you want me to welcome the junior students? The young man sitting in the back row said with a smile. Yuzingsu rolled her eyes. You soul sect, please stop causing trouble and graduate as soon as possible to avoid being an eyesore here. That's not possible. I have to accompany my juniors for a while. At least it's okay to be a sparring partner. The young man shook his head. He is already 23 years old. Although he has joined the soul sect, there are still 3 years until the start of the soul master competition, so he is not qualified to compete. Hey, in such a big class, isn't there anyone who can help the teacher solve problems? I'll be sad, teacher. Yuzingsu said with some resentment. What problems do you want to solve? Teacher, you haven't said whether to let them pass or not. Should we defeat them cleanly, or let them lose on purpose? A boy wearing a short-sleeved shirt, revealing 2 strong arms, asked. Yuzingsu held her chin and thought for 2 seconds, then said, well, just play normally. Winning or losing is not important. Niu Xiaopeng, you are very confident. Very good. It's you. There are still 2 people missing. Her eyes swept across the class and finally fell on a boy in the middle. He had long golden hair, sea blue eyes, dry lips, a high nose bridge, and a golden pendant on his left ear. Brady, are you interested? The eyes of the whole class were immediately focused on Brady, with either surprise or playfulness. Wow. You actually let Brady go, teacher. Are you serious? Asked the soul sect youth. Well, it was Vidiel who led them here. Vidiel. Hearing this name, Brady's eyes suddenly became sharp, like a lion patrolling his territory. If it was him, I would really like to fight, but it's just the people he brought, so forget it. Brady shook his head, then turned to the person behind him and said, Roy, go and try their level. Okay, boss, I will definitely win beautifully. Roy gave himself a thumbs up and said confidently, then, there is still 1 person missing. Yuzingsu was thinking about who should be the most suitable. The boy in black and white clothes who spoke first said, didn't you say there was a little girl? Then let the little girl fight the little girl. As soon as he finished speaking, a layer of ice suddenly formed on the surface of his table. Then, I'll go, teacher. A girl who looked young said. She was wearing light blue clothes and her hair was also light blue, so light that it was almost white. There was no expression on her face, and she was as cold as ice. Yuzingsu hesitated for a moment, then nodded. Then you, be careful not to hit too hard. Binglan, yes. The girl with light blue hair nodded. Chapter 43, Arena Battle. Brady stood up, smoothed the wrinkles on his clothes, and said to the 2 teachers in front, it seems that this class can no longer go on. Everyone is more or less interested in the juniors who want to join our class. In addition, Vidiel's promotion to the next grade has also attracted the attention of many people. In this case, let's all go to the training ground to see my challenger and the 3 newcomers who want to go directly to the 3rd grade. As soon as they entered school, the black-clothed teacher shook his head helplessly and said to Yuzingsu, teacher, you are not just taking up a few minutes. You are taking up my entire class. Yuzingsu smiled between her eyebrows. Sorry, teacher Shan. How about I give you 2 classes? This way I can slack off openly. She thought to herself. That's not necessary. It happens that I'm also quite interested. Xian Honghe, who was wearing black, shook his head. Then everyone go to the training ground. This class will be changed to practical teaching. The training ground is composed of circular arenas that are 10 meters high and more than 30 meters in diameter, which are consistent with the arena specifications of the preliminary round of the elite competition of advanced soul master colleges across the continent. In fact, the entire 3rd grade of Northland colleges centered around the soul master competition. Familiarizing with similar venues in advance can allow students to perform better after the actual competition. Amon sat on the edge of the arena, his feet hanging naturally, his eyes closed, as if he was asleep. Yan Jin and Lei Yin sat on his left and right sides, looking around idly. Vidiel stood behind them, looking at a group of people coming from a distance, and reminded, here they come. Amon opened his eyes, stroked the edge of his glasses with his right hand, and chuckled. It's a big battle. Vidiel clicked his tongue. This is a whole class. Without waiting for them to get close, Amon pushed the floor of the ring with his hands and jumped down. Lei Yan followed suit and jumped down with the same action. Yan Jin kicked the wall of the ring and turned 2.5 times in the air before landing steadily. The crowd approached. Brady and Vidiel's eyes collided in mid-air, and the air seemed to be full of gunpowder. Both of them were determined to participate in the Soul Master competition and were trying to form their own teams. There were many noble children in the academy who wanted to form their own teams. Since the Soul Master competition was mainly a team battle, the same team could not accommodate too many noble students with the same functions, so there was bound to be competition between them. In order to win the internal selection competition of the academy, the leaders of each team used various means, either giving resources or promising benefits, to win over the nobles. Recruit talented students whose families are not so good. Because of this competition system, the captains of the Northland College are often students with rich family backgrounds. Although Vidiel had not been promoted to the 3rd grade before, he was also preparing for it. He and Brady had a conflict over recruiting a talented student. Brady regarded class 1 as his base. In his mind, the students here were all candidates for his future team members. Therefore, he was wary and hostile to Vidiel, the intruder. The confrontation between them attracted the attention of the whole audience, and the students seemed to have forgotten the main purpose of their coming here. It's not the time yet. I will wait for you. 2 years later, I will completely defeat you in the selection competition. Brady said in a condescending tone. The start time of the elite competition of advanced Soul Master colleges across the continent is 3 years later, but the internal trials of the Northland College will be held in 2 years. In the remaining year, the college will concentrate all its resources to train the team that wins the trials. Although the situation has changed a little since you said so, how can I avoid it? You must be the one who fails. Vidiel glanced at Amon and smiled confidently. Brady is indeed strong. He doesn't have much chance of winning now, but he is not so strong that he cannot be challenged. And Amon defeated himself easily in the previous battle. The gap in strength is simply desperate. Amon watched this scene quietly and whispered, interesting. You. Xingsu felt that it seemed to be off topic. She coughed lightly and said, okay, if you have anything to say, go and communicate by yourselves later. Now let's start the assessment. Who will go first? NIU. Xiaopeng jumped onto the stage and looked down at Amon and others. Come on at random. His eyes were on Amon, and it was obvious that this was his favorite opponent. He didn't want to fight with the other 2 kids. Winning is normal, but losing is embarrassing. A flash of lightning. Lei Yan appeared a few steps away from him. Let me do it. NIU. Xiaopeng's expression was slightly condensed. Just by the speed he showed when he got on the stage just now, he knew that this was not an easy opponent. Yu Xingsu jumped onto the stone pillar on the other side that was higher than the ring. This was the referee's position. Others went to another ring. The audience seats were too far away for viewing, and all the people present were Soul Masters, so there was no need to worry about being accidentally injured. Lei Yan, come on, knock him down. Yan Jin shouted excitedly. NIU. Xiaopeng, a level 32 defense-based battle Soul Master. NIU. Xiaopeng reported his name, level, and development trend. Lei Yan, a level 23 agility attack-based battle Soul Master. Lei Yan also returned the greeting. When he just left Frostleaf City, he was level 22. He did not waste this time, and his soul power increased by 1 level. Agility. Attack system versus defense system? How long will this fight last? The student in black and white clothes yawned and said indifferently. Then he shouted to the 2 of them, you guys move faster. I want to see the little girls beating each other. I want to see them tearing their hair and clothes. So don't wait any longer. 2 unkind eyes were focused on him. Yan Jin shook his fist at him. Binglan said, Bateman, after the assessment, you and I have a fight. The careless Bateman whistled. Want to teach me a lesson? You're still a little behind. Binglan was silent for a moment and then said, then fight with me next month. I'm level 30. Bateman's expression was stagnant, and he followed his heart and said, are you going to be promoted to Soul Lord? Hahaha, I just made a joke. Don't take it to heart. Fighting or something. How bad it is. Classmates should love each other. On. The ring. Niu Xiaopeng had already revealed his martial spirit, which was a blue-striped buffalo, a rough-skinned and thick-flesh spirit beast that was said to have a trace of the blood of the Azure Bull Python Point. After being possessed by the martial spirit, double horns grew on his head, his face became somewhat deformed, and his figure became more burly. Moo. He blew out 2 streams of hot breath from his nostrils. His eyes bright. On the other side, thunder exploded, lightning flashed, and the sound of thunder was enveloped in a silvery lightning. He waved his hand, and a bolt of lightning rushed towards Niu Xiaopeng at lightning speed. The latter did not dare to be careless, and at the same time he waved, he had already activated his first soul skill. Niu Xiaopeng's skin became as wrinkled as a tree, glowing with a hazy green light. Chapter 44, The Thickest Armor. The lightning struck Niu Xiaopeng's skin that had been strengthened by soul skills, leaving a charred black patch. Feeling the pain in his forearm, Niu Xiaopeng launched a counter-attack with red eyes. He charged forward like a mad bull. Lei Yan crossed his fingers in front of him, then pulled to both sides, pulling out a net made of thunder and lightning. The power grid blocked Niu Xiaopeng's collision path, scorching his whole body black and causing his hair to stand on end. Ha ha ha. Bateman laughed at the side. You're not going to overturn your car, are you? Shut up. Niu Xiaopeng roared dissatisfied, and activated his second soul skill. His skin changed from its original bark-like state to pieces of grey-white rocks. Then, the third soul ring lit up, which was a purple 1000-year soul ring. There was a faint metallic luster on his grey-white skin. Lei Yan understood clearly that all his soul skills were used to increase his defense. A sentence he heard from a tavern in Frostleaf City suddenly popped into his mind. He who wears the thickest armor will receive the most severe beatings. A smile couldn't help but appear on his face. Lei Yan did not rush to attack, but slowly distanced himself. The maintenance of soul skills requires the consumption of soul power, and time is on his side. Hey, kid. Are you scared? Niu Xiaopeng taunted. No, this is called strategic retreat. Lei Yan smiled, not swayed by his words. Then, you have to be careful. Niu Xiaopeng charged again. This time he moved much faster than before, but it was still not enough. Lei Yan's legs are filled with thunder, constantly moving around and conducting electricity through the ground, paralyzing the opponent's muscles and reducing his speed. This keeps him at a safe distance. Time passed by minute by second, and Niu Xiaopeng began to pant due to the exhaustion of his soul power and physical strength. During this period, he also tried to turn off the defense strengthening effect of the soul ring to save soul power, but every time this happened, he would be hit by violent lightning strikes. It was stronger and more damaging than the initial tentative attack, which forced him to keep the enhancement turned on. Lei Yan's martial spirit is thunder and lightning, which has strong conductivity, which allows him to throw it easily without having to go out of his way to obtain a spirit ring to fire like Yan Jin did. Therefore, the direction Amon chose for his second soul ring was storage, in order to make up for the shortcomings of thunder and lightning that would dissipate quickly after being created, and improve his ability to fight for a long time. Lei Yan can create thunder and lightning in normal times and store it in the second soul ring. Of course, this has a certain upper limit. Until now during his battle with Niu Xiaopeng, he had been sparing the use of thunder and lightning, and he hadn't even used up what was stored in his soul ring. When the battle reached this point, everyone could see that the balance of victory and defeat had begun to tilt in Lei Yan's direction. Haha, you silly guys, just being teased. Bateman commented with a smile. His words were not echoed by others. In fact, Niu Xiaopeng's speed is not too slow. In the ring, the space for dodge is limited. Being able to dodge his collision every time has proved Lei Yan's advantage and speed. In addition, he forced Niu Xiaopeng to maintain the defensive superposition state with all 3 spirit rings activated, which showed that his attack power was not weak. Moreover, thunder and lightning also has a paralysis control effect. Speed, attack power, and control are all added together. If you think about it for a moment, you can understand how tricky Lei Yan is. What's more, he seems to have reservations. Niu Xiaopeng's face looked a little ugly. He was beaten by a child until he had no ability to resist, which made him very embarrassed. He made a prompt decision and activated Wuhan's special ability, Go Mad. When faced with a life or death crisis, the blue-striped buffalo will fall into a violent state, during which its attack power, defense power, speed, etc. will be greatly increased. Niu Xiaopeng's martial spirit also gives him the same ability, except that he can activate it actively, and does not need to be in a specific state such as facing a life or death crisis. His speed suddenly increased a lot, and the paralysis effect of the current on the ground on him was also greatly weakened. Lei Yin's dodge began to become difficult. Amon raised his right hand, touched the lower edge of the monocle, and said, "Li Yin, stop playing around and fight quickly, since it is an assessment. Using appropriate strategies to win is indeed a way, but Amon needs a clean victory to show the strength of their group, which can make his team more attractive to outstanding students." He didn't have a deep background, and Yan Jin's master Walter didn't mean to interfere too much, so he could only improve the team's competitiveness from other aspects. No matter what, the ultimate goal of joining the team is to win the college selection competition and represent the college in the Soul Master competition. Then winning is the biggest advantage. As long as you make others feel like they can win, you won't be able to attract people. "Okay, Mr. Amon." Lei Yin nodded and said to Niu Xiaopeng, who had gone crazy and had little sense, "Originally I didn't want to hurt you too seriously, but since Mr. Amon asked so, I can only do it as soon as possible." He clasped his hands together in front of him, and then pulled out a silver white short spear from the palm of his left hand with his right hand. After the short spear left the palm of his left hand, it suddenly stretched out and turned into a long spear. Thunder spear. This is a spear composed of highly condensed thunder and lightning. Even if you look at it from a distance, it gives people a feeling of panic. "No way. This is a great Soul Master." Bateman was startled and looked at Binglan involuntarily, then looked at Yan Jin, who glared at him from time to time, and suddenly felt that it was better for him to say less. Looking at the burly figure rushing towards him, Li Yin had no intention of dodging. Thunder surged, and he threw the spear in his hand. This attack used up the lightning stored in his second soul ring, and also consumed a lot of soul power, making his face a little pale. Boom. Thunder exploded, accompanied by a deafening roar, and a big pit was blown out of the ring. Niu Xiaopeng, covered in blood, walked out of the smoke and dust, took a few steps, and fell to the ground. Yu Xingsu rushed to the ring to check his injuries, and shouted, "Student Alana, come over quickly and help him heal." Before she spoke, a girl in light green clothes and flaxen curly hair had jumped over. "Leave it to me," she said in a sweet voice. A dandelion appeared in Alana's hand, emitting a white glow. 3 soul rings of yellow, and purple emerged, and this was a healing Soul Master. Her purple soul ring lit up, and the white glow formed small light balls, which merged into Niu Xiaopeng's wound. The wound that had been bleeding stopped bleeding quickly, and began to heal at a speed visible to the naked eye. I only restored his external injuries, and the internal injuries need further examination. Although my treatment healed his wounds, it required the consumption of his own vitality, so overall, he was weaker. Add to that the negative effects of madness. He may have to recuperate for a long time, at least half a month. Alana said softly, "You have done very well." Yu Xingsu nodded. Lei Yin came over and said apologetically, "I'm sorry, I was too heavy-handed and didn't grasp the power of my soul skills." Yu Xingsu waved her hand and said, "No need to apologize. It's common to get injured during sparring. As long as there are no permanent and difficult to heal injuries, it's fine. What's more, he needs to recuperate for so long. In fact, it's more of a side effect of madness. Although your attack is powerful, this kid is also thick-skinned. He is a Soul Master after all. If it's just a skin injury caused by this blow, he will be alive and kicking in 2 or 3 days after treatment." Shan Honghe came over, picked up Niu Xiaopeng, and said, "I'll take him to the infirmary. Teacher you watch this place. Don't let anything happen." "Okay, thank you." Yu Xingsu nodded. Chapter 45 Ice and Fire. With Lei Yin Yasu in front, Yu Xingsu also has some expectations for the next assessment. I didn't expect that guy Zhu Yaozi would occasionally send some talents over. she thought to herself. Binglan and Yan Jin jumped onto another intact ring at the same time in tacit agreement. When they were watching the battle just now, they had a strong feeling for each other. This person is so annoying. Binglan, level 30 control soul master. Yan Jin is a level 28 attack spirit master. 2 monsters. When they informed each other about their status levels, other people in the class suddenly came up with this idea. Binglan is young, only 14 years old, while Yan Jin looks younger at such an age, and with such soul power cultivation, it doesn't take much to think that they will definitely be able to reach a height that is completely unreachable for ordinary people in the future. When they released their martial spirits, one ice and one magma, the arena was suddenly occupied by two elements. Half of the arena was scorching hot with blazing waves, and half of the arena was filled with cold air and frost. Amon raised his right hand, stroked his monocle, and said with great interest, "Interesting." Everyone was surprised by this sense of separation and opposition. Ice and fire, cold and heat, these are simply natural rivals. Needless to say, the two activated their martial spirits. Binglan waved her hand, the first soul ring lit up, and a burst of cold air suddenly broke out on Yan Jin. Her body began to stiffen, and the frost gradually spread from her feet upwards. The magma emerging from all over the body drove away the severe cold. "Hey, it's not bad." A wanton smile appeared on Yan Jin's face, and he stretched his palm forward. Volcano. Combo. Lava. Balls shot towards Binglan. Like cannonballs, the latter still had no expression on her face. She directly used her second soul ring, and the ice began to deform, forming a round shield in front of her that could protect her entire body. Martial soul condensation. Looking at this familiar ability, the smile on Yan Jin's face grew bigger and bigger. She waved her fist widely, and the hot lava turned into a huge fist. Big fire breathing. A light blue light glowed on Binglan's right hand. She moved her arm from bottom to top, and a large, crystal clear bird made of ice flew towards the magma. Ice bird. The two collided, sound waves surged, and steam overflowed. Yan Jin shot towards the opponent. The martial souls of both sides are mutually reinforcing and incompatible. Using soul skills to compete in consumption is obviously disadvantageous for her, whose soul power is 2 levels lower, so she decisively chose to fight hand to hand. There is no doubt that magma is more threatening to the human body than ice. Binglan also knows this, but there is no good way to stop it. Her first soul skill freeze has almost no effect on Yan Jin. She waved her hand and condensed a long knife out of ice. Ice saber. The ice blade collided with the fist covered with the lava gauntlet. Upon contact, both of them found that their soul power consumption accelerated sharply. Originally, the ice and magma they created could only be maintained for a long time by consuming a small amount of soul power. However, due to the mutual offset of temperatures, the ice was evaporated and the magma was cooled, forcing both parties to invest more soul power. Yan Jin reached out and grabbed the ice blade and struck Binglan in front of him with the other hand, but Binglan blocked it with his arm, covered with ice crystal gauntlet. Fists, elbows, knees, every part of Yan Jin's body became an extremely dangerous weapon after being wrapped in lava. Compared with long-range attacks, Yan Jin's melee compatibility is more powerful. This is the fighting method she has honed to this day. In comparison, Binglan's response was much inferior, and she could only condense pieces of solid ice as a shield to resist. "It's over," Yan Jin whispered. After melting a piece of ice, Yan Jin swept his opponent's abdomen with one kick. But Binglan, who had always been passive, suddenly exploded at this moment. After receiving the kick, she threw herself to one side and kicked Yan Jin in the head with a side kick. Yan Jin took a step back and hit the side of Binglan's calf with his elbow, neutralizing her final counter-attack. After falling to the ground, Binglan did not try to continue fighting. She knew that she had lost, struggled to stand up, and limped towards the edge of the ring. Her calf was broken in the collision just now. Covering her calves with ice as protection, she formed a slide, sat down and slid down, leaving the ring without saying a word. Alana's martial soul healing had no effect on this kind of internal injury, so the two girls helped her walk to the infirmary. Yuzingsu scratched her head. Feeling a little worried, another one enters the infirmary. Although it is normal to be injured in battle, it is too frequent. She couldn't help but look at Amon, who smiled. You're not going to send me, a student, into the infirmary again, are you? Amon touched the bottom of his glasses and asked, I'm already a soul master, do I still need to test you? Xingsu wanted to see Amon's ability, but she was a little worried that the situation would be the same as the last 2 games. In one assessment, 3 people were injured in a row and entered the infirmary. She would definitely be reprimanded by the principal when she turned around. Yes, of course, you won't back down from the battle, right? The one who spoke was Roy, who had found a new arena. Roy saw the performance of Lian and Yan Jin and was a little frightened when facing the obviously older Amon, but he still kept in mind the task Brady gave him. Since the boss wants to test the opponent, how can the younger brother back down? Moreover, Brady has always been generous. If he is injured, I think he can get a lot of compensation. With this thought in mind, Roy hooked his fingers at Amon and made a provocative gesture. Amon raised his right hand, adjusted his monocle, and said, "Ha, that's as you wish." He jumped lightly and jumped to the ring where Roy was. Roy, a level 33 agility attack war spirit master. Amon, the 34th level auxiliary fighting spirit master. Roy raised his eyebrows. Auxiliary, battle soul master. In most people's common sense, auxiliary soul masters and combat soul masters are 2 completely different development directions. No auxiliary soul master has combat effectiveness. The famous Kibeo glazed sect in the Xiandao Empire is a typical example. Martial spirits come in many shapes and forms, and each one is different. While it can assist others, it's not surprising that it also possesses a certain level of combat power, right? Amon said with a smile. That's true. Looking at Amon's gentle smile and scholar-like temperament, the hostility in Roy's heart suddenly subsided a lot. Amon continued, classmate, in fact, there is no need for us to fight tit for tat. This battle is completely unnecessary. Lei Yan 1, Yan Jin 1, don't you understand the strength they showed? Since they can win, I, who is stronger than them, will naturally not lose. So, why don't we skip the process and announce the result directly? The corners of Amon's mouth moved back, forming a smile. Just admit defeat. Roy's thinking became sluggish. He didn't have time to understand the logical connection, but he just felt that what Amon said seemed to make sense. So she blurted out what he meant. Okay, I admit defeat. The students watching the battle didn't understand what was going on. Looking at this scene, they just felt weird and absurd. Brady frowned. He even suspected that Roy was bribed by Videal to deliberately embarrass himself on such an occasion. After saying the words admit defeat, Roy had already come to his senses. He slapped himself, as if regretting that he couldn't speak out of his mind. Amon's second soul skill deception can slow down the opponent's thinking speed, increase affinity, and make his words more credible. He took advantage of the shock brought by the violent spirits of Lei Yin and Yan Jin in the first 2 games. In fact, before Roy entered the ring, he vaguely felt that he would lose. Amon temporarily suppressed the speed of his rational thinking and channeled his inner thoughts of losing. Under the passive effect of the second soul skill, Roy felt that Amon was credible and what he said was correct, so there was such a somewhat funny scene. Hahaha, I was joking just now. Let's fight with all our strength, Roy said bravely. Amon ignored it and just looked at Yu Xingsu with a smile. As a soul emperor, Yu Xingsu naturally understood what just happened. Amon used a spiritual skill similar to charm. She spoke to judge the outcome of the battle. Roy, you have lost, teacher. You, but I. Roy opened his mouth, but didn't say any more. He also realized that there might have been something wrong with his mental state just now. It was because of what Amon did, rather than because he simply spoke without thinking. Roy looked at Amon with deep fear, and a trace of fear that he couldn't even detect. Chapter 46 Yan Jin and 039's proposal. Those present were all elites from the Northland Academy. Although their reaction was a little slow at first, they came to think of it after using to announce the result of the battle point. Amon used some weird ability to make Roy automatically admit defeat. They looked at Amon with a little more curiosity and inquiry. A 34th level soul master with weird spiritual abilities, coupled with the power that Yan Jin and Yan showed before. They suddenly discovered that Vidiel's team already has considerable strength and is a strong competitor for Brady. Roy walked up to Brady, scratched his head and said, "Sorry, boss, I messed up." Brady did not blame him and said with relief, "It's not your fault. It's the first time I encounter such an ability. Anyone who is caught off guard will suffer a big loss. You have at least tested his ability and you have done a good job. You." Zinxu ignored the reactions of the students and said to Amon and others with a smile, "Congratulations, you have passed the promotion assessment. From now on, you are members of class 1. You have just entered school, right? Then take care of your own affairs today and come over to class starting tomorrow." Amon responded with a smile, "I know, Yan." Jin's expression was not very good. She hated any classes other than practical classes. If it weren't for participating in the Soul Master competition, she really wouldn't want to come to school. Lei Yan seemed very calm. In the Bingfeng Junior Soul Master Academy, he was among the best in both theoretical and practical results. He was a top student. That's it. Get out of class is over. Then you can study by yourself. You. Zinxu said a few words to the students in class 1 and left. Brady came over and said to Amon, "Are you interested in coming to my place? What Vidiel can give you, I can also give you." Amon stroked his glasses and said without any change in expression, "What he promised to give me has already been given, and it was a coincidence. I don't need a second copy. That's really a pity. I'm afraid our relationship won't be too friendly for a long time in the future." Brady shook his head, slightly disappointed. Now that Vidiel's team has begun to pose a threat to him, he must take action. "Let's go." Brady gave Vidiel a demonstrative look and left with his followers. Vidiel shrugged relaxedly. If he had been the captain to form the team before, he might have been under a lot of pressure when facing Brady, who was stronger than him. But now that he is not the leader of the team, he naturally does not need to consider these things. He looked at Amon and asked, "Amon, what should we do next?" "Brady will definitely target us in various ways, including, but not limited to, verbal provocation, exclusion, and isolation, asking for fights in practical classes, spreading rumors and slanders. If it goes too far, they may even find people outside the school to teach us a lesson. Isn't this just school bullying? I thought it would be more intense." With this thought, Amon straightened his monocle and did not respond. Lei Yan asked coldly, "That's it? Can you kill people?" Vidiel was stunned for a moment and looked at Lei Yan with a stunned expression, as if to say, "Why do you have such a terrible idea?" He shook his head. No, your idea is a bit too extreme. The college attaches great importance to the safety of students. A fatal accident is a very serious incident and will be dealt with seriously. Students' competition is limited to a certain limit, and if they exceed this limit, they will be disqualified, and the captains of each team have a certain tacit understanding. When a team decides to withdraw from the trials, everything before will be forgotten. The oppressors will not pursue them to the death, and the oppressed will naturally not be able to retaliate. The Soul Master competition is important, but it's not to the point where we need to make a lot of mortal enemies for it. Even if you are suppressed and have to disband the team due to pressure, few people will continue to hold a hostile attitude. Their skills are inferior to others. If you lose, you lose. The Northland Advanced Soul Master Academy is a Soul Master Academy that is mainly composed of noble children. Only a small number of the most outstanding civilian Soul Masters can enter. Therefore, many rules in the academy are full of aristocratic style and are more biased towards the interests of the aristocracy. The academy defaults to team selection not only on the field, but also on the competition for connections and resources off the field. For the nobles, this kind of competition with peers outside the arena is also a test and experience. And the competition on the arena is even more important. Amon did not comment on this. This method of students competing on their own actually limited the struggle between various nobles within a certain framework. It can not only show the strength of each family to a certain extent, but also avoid being hurt after losing. But there are always exceptions. If something else is mixed in, the fight can easily escalate. In short, if we can give all the other team members a good beating, just 2 times, until they dare not call themselves a team anymore, then we will automatically get the selection. Victory, right? Yan Jin's perspective on the problem was as simple and crude as ever. After listening to her idea, Amon twitched his lips, showed a smile, and said softly, in a sense, this is indeed the best way for us. There is no need to scheming, or competing for connections or resources. Vidal's forehead twitched, and he expressed his objection in a not so firm tone. For the noble group behind the academy, it is the honor of their descendants to shine in the Soul Master competition. They may be able to accept the occasional civilian Soul Master who breaks in to share this honor, but they will never sit back and watch someone take it all for themselves. Amon smiled and shook his head and said, I didn't say I wanted to take it all for myself. Aren't you the representative of the interests of a certain group of people? We still have 3 regulars and 1 alternate. First, follow what Yan Jin said, break up the other teams, and then share the remaining places with influential people in the group through interest exchange. How about it? Vidal scratched his chin. This is indeed feasible, but is it really okay to do so? I'm afraid I have to be vigilant on the way home from school to see if I will be hit by a club. Doing this will make other teams unite against us. Are you sure we can fight against them? Of course. Yan Jin said confidently. Lei Yan glanced at her and knew that she had not thought carefully at all, but was just agreeing with Amon. However, her confident look was indeed a reassurance for Vidal, who did not know the truth. Amon stroked his monocle and said softly, it's a little too early to say this now. Let's wait until Yan Jin and Lei Yan have grown more before doing it. Chapter 47. Earlier the next day, Yu Xingsu came to the classroom and looked at the students who were either sleeping or crossing their legs and looking up at the sky. She didn't say anything. This is normal. As long as a soul power training is not left behind, she doesn't care about the rest. She looked around and suddenly felt that something was wrong, as if something was missing. Bidder, where are Amon, Yan Jin and Lian? Where did the 3 of them go? Yu Xingsu found the source of the disharmony and asked Bidder. They? Well, Yan Jin's stomach is a little uncomfortable. Lian went to take care of her, and Amon is probably in the library. Bidder scratched his cheek with his index finger and said apologetically. On the first day of formal enrollment, the first class, none of the 3 came, which was indeed a bit unreasonable. Yu Xingsu frowned, feeling annoyed, but didn't say much, walked up to the podium and started teaching. Amon walked on the flat stone road, through the arched door, and walked into the vast library. After showing his student ID to the administrator at the door, he went straight to the 2nd floor as the largest institution of higher learning in the northern province. The Northern Advanced Soul Master Academy's collection of books is naturally not comparable to that of a small school like the Icewind Junior Soul Master Academy. The first floor of the library is the reading area, with rows of benches and tables, and the 2nd floor is the real book collection area, with bookshelves filled with all kinds of books. The walls around are also made in the style of bookshelves, extending all the way to the dome above. Amon looked at the books placed at a height of tens of meters and said, TSK, you can't even take the books down without some tricks. He chuckled and used the ability of the external soul bone to condense the soul power into a hand shape, controlling it to extend upwards, and from the highest point, took down a large book with a red cover, Argonian made. He originally thought that the higher the book was, the more difficult it would be to obtain, and the more precious the things recorded would be. But after a rough look, he put the book back in its place expressionlessly. The content of this book only talks about love, not cultivation. Puff. A chuckle sounded behind him. Amon turned around and saw a blonde girl. Her blue eyes were as beautiful as gems. Her face was beautiful, and her voice was as moving as a silver bell. Sorry, I just couldn't help it. Is it surprising? I have seen many students who tried every means to take down the books at the highest point, but ended up with a weird look on their faces. The girl apologized with a chuckle. Ah, you familiar with this place? Amon said in a positive tone. Yes, I like reading books, finding a quiet corner, reading an interesting book, and enjoying the joy of wandering in the ocean of knowledge. This is what I have done most in the past 6 years in the academy. The blonde girl said in a silver bell-like voice. 6 years? Well, by the way, I don't seem to have introduced myself yet. My name is Alia, a student in class 4, grade 3. She lifted her skirt, bowed slightly, and did a lady's etiquette. Amon, freshman in class 1, grade 3. Amon's mouth curled up slightly, and said with a smile, point among the 4 captains that Vidiel introduced to him, and who would become their future competitors in the intra-school selection. Her name was one of them. Do you like reading? It happens that I also like reading, but not out of interest or hobby, just want to understand the knowledge in it. They can help me go further. Do you think I am too utilitarian? On the contrary, I like people like you very much, very real. I think we can talk. Do you have any books you want to find? Maybe I can give you some reference. Alia smiled lightly. She paused and added, I think you will also participate in the intra-school selection. I recently read 2 books that should be inspiring to you. They are Self-Cultivation of Leaders and Obeying the Captain's Orders. Are there any books about social relations? When I was in junior college, I read a sentence that impressed me very much and benefited me a lot. Amon raised his right hand and adjusted his monocle. What? Honor can be sold as long as the price is right. Alia was slightly stunned. Then she smiled again. It's a very interesting sentence. If you like this kind of books, you can go to the 5th bookshelf from the back to the front. Because there are not many people reading these books, they are placed at the back. Thank you. Amon nodded. See you later, Amon. If you encounter any difficulties or problems that cannot be solved, you can try to find me. Alia smiled brightly. I will. Amon smiled. Watching Alia leave, Amon's mind emerged with some information about her that Vidiel gave him. Alia Fikris, the eldest daughter of Marquis Fikris, is talented and intelligent. Her martial soul is a colorful book. It is said that she worshipped a powerful soul saint as her teacher when she was very young, but that soul saint is very mysterious and has never shown up. In the aristocratic system of Xiandao, the Marquis is the highest title directly under the royal family. The only higher titles are the Kings of the 4 Kingdoms and the Grand Duke of a Principality. Although there are some honorary dukes, they do not control the fiefdoms and have no real power. The Feckless family is the leading family in the entire Northland. It is one of the directors of the Northland College and has a great say among the top executives of the Northland College. Although she was born in a big family, her disadvantages were also obvious. She was a girl. Marquis Fikris would not designate her as the heir. If there were no special circumstances, the more outstanding she was, the more she would be targeted by her brothers. In this case, the power she could mobilize was extremely limited. Interesting. Amon laughed softly. He saw ambition and unwillingness in Alia's eyes. She was a woman who wanted to break free from her fate, a woman who pursued power and strength. Yan Jin brought Lei into a barbecue restaurant in the north of BD City. Hey, the old man gave us a lot of money. Let's go for a big meal. When I entered the city, I smelled the aroma of barbecue here. I have been looking forward to it. She smiled very brightly, revealing 2 rows of white teeth. But, sister, didn't you tell Bidder that you were upset? Lei Yan was a little helpless. He was worried about it for a while. Yes, that's right. I'm hungry, which is also a kind of discomfort. Yan Jin put his hands on his waist and answered confidently. Lei Yan opened his mouth, but for a moment he didn't know how to refute. Is this really okay? Skipping class on the first day of school? He asked worriedly. Will teacher you scold you when you go back? Don't worry, it's okay. If it's really inappropriate, Amon would have stopped it long ago. Mr. Amon also knows. Didn't we run away secretly? Yan Jin suddenly gave him a meaningful smile. What makes you think that a little trick can be hidden from him? Chapter 48. Rommel. I'm a loser. My innate soul power is not high, only level 7. A young man with dark purple hair, a curly haircut, punk style clothes, and iron rings hanging on his coat, who looks to be in his 20s, tells his story. While holding a half-drunk glass of wine. He looks lonely and sad, and seems to be having a bad time, but what he says makes most people think that he is not just asking for a beating. I was admitted to the Northland College, but was ostracized by my classmates, because no one likes someone who is not good at talking. You are indeed not good at talking. The audience around had such an idea from the bottom of their hearts. Later, I met my teacher, who is an excellent hunter. He took me hunting in the Soul Beast forest. He has so much experience that he can always avoid powerful soul beasts and find the right prey. The traps he sets never disappoint people. He taught me how to provoke wild boars and let them fall into the traps themselves. But one day, everything changed. We encountered something very strange in the forest. 4 black baboons carried a coffin and passed by us swaying from side to side. A baby-like cry came from the coffin. It was in that accident that I lost my teacher. I swear, I'm telling the truth. You can't imagine what I've been through. Yan, who was listening attentively, looked at the narrator, who suddenly stopped and asked, "What happened?" Hearing Yan's question, the narrator sighed deeply at the empty wine glass on his table. Yan knew what he meant and said to the bartender, "Give this gentleman a glass of his favorite wine." The purple-haired young man took the full glass and drank it all in one gulp. He looked at Yan and showed a playful and slightly sarcastic smile. "What happened?" "Guess." The expectation on Yan's face gradually disappeared, and he said with some disappointment, "You haven't written the sequel yet, have you? What a pity. Wasting my money for a glass of wine." That expression was just like looking at an author who had stopped updating and ran away. It turned out that I didn't fool you. I thought there was really a fool who believed it. The smile on his face faded slightly, and he lost some interest. He put the index finger and middle finger of his right hand together and stretched them to the side. A lavender translucent barrier appeared at his fingertips. Bang! The barrier collided with the attacking fist, making a low sound. "Asshole, who do you say is stupid? No, you dare to cheat my brother. Give me back the money for the wine." Yan Jin said halfway and quickly changed his words. Not that, it's just a glass of wine." Yan grabbed Yan Jin and said with a headache. The purple-haired young man ignored Yan Jin and looked at Yan. "Is this your sister? Her IQ doesn't seem to be very good." Yan pulled Yan Jin's hand back. "I suddenly feel that the money for a glass of wine is also money. He may not care about being tricked into drinking a glass of wine, but he cannot care about someone speaking ill of his sister. The deep love between brother and sister. It's so touching." A playful smile appeared on the face of the purple-haired young man. "I'm not lying to you. I'm indeed ostracized by my classmates. That must be because of your mouth." Yan cursed secretly. He rarely had the thought of beating people up with Yan Jin instead of trying to dissuade them. There. As the flames rise, the fiery red magma brings bursts of heat. The magma burned the barrier, but it was still unable to break through the thin layer of defense. "Soul Master, at this age, and with such fluctuations in soul power, you should be my juniors and juniors." The purple-haired young man had a leisurely look on his face and did not pay attention to the fist covered by lava. "But I remember that we should be in class at this time. Are you guys skipping class? Which class are you in?" "I promise not to tell you in front of your class teacher that you skipped class just to come here to drink and eat." "Ah, you also a student of Northland College?" Yan asked with a frown. The purple-haired young man asked in surprise, "Didn't I say that just now? The memory of fish should be more than just a few seconds." Big spray. Yan Jin was about to use a more powerful attack, but he remembered that he had burned down the Bitter family's tavern last time, so he retracted his fist and said coldly, "Senior, how about going outside to teach me?" The purple-haired young man laughed. "Since the junior sister is so enthusiastic, let's go." When they came to the street, the two of them set up their formations, and the surging soul power brought a faint oppression. The pedestrians consciously made room and stayed far away to avoid being accidentally injured. The two conflicting soul masters attracted a lot of attention, and one after another looked here. Yan Jin was ready for battle. The brief confrontation just now made her realize that this guy who deserved a beating in front of her could not be easily dealt with. Huh? Isn't that Rommel? Who did he fight with again? Someone in the crowd knew the purple-haired young man and asked, "Who knows?" With his mouth. People who want to beat him up can line up from the entrance of the academy to the city lord's mansion. The purple-haired Rommel showed a mocking smile to Yan Jin, raised his middle finger, turned around and ran away. A gust of wind blew, carrying the leaves on the ground, and rifting across the street. The embarrassment of being teased made Yan Jin's anger rise. "Don't run." She took a step and chased after him. "Sister, wait for me." Lei Yin wanted to chase after him, but the shop owner grabbed his clothes. "Ah, you students from BD College. Do you want to run away without paying?" he said fiercely. BD College has a good reputation. If students make trouble and are complained, they will be dealt with fairly after the situation is confirmed. So the locals are not afraid of the Soul Master students in the college. Be careful, I will complain to the college. Lei Yin reluctantly paid the bill, including the bill for the runaway Rommel. He didn't want to waste time arguing with the shop owner on such a small matter, but he was still too slow. Looking back, Yan Jin and Rommel had disappeared. He scratched his chin with a headache and muttered, "I hope it won't make too much noise." "Asshole, don't run," Yan Jin shouted while chasing. "Then, don't chase." Rommel's mocking smile never faded. "If you don't run, I won't chase you." "Why would I run if you don't chase me?" As they chased and fled, they ran across half of the city and came to an open space around the Northland College. "You're too persistent." It was the first time that Rommel encountered such an opponent who was as sticky as taffy. The smile on his face had disappeared, replaced by a kind of helplessness. "He can't run anymore. I have good endurance." Yan Jin showed a triumphant smile. "So, young lady, what if I catch up?" Rommel's bad smile reappeared on his face. "Of course I'll teach you a lesson." Yan Jin's purpose has always been simple and clear. "You can't do it," Rommel said calmly. "How do you know if you don't try?" On a small hillside nearby, a thin figure dressed as a businessman sat on a stone, calmly watching the conflict below. He raised his right hand to his face and suddenly seemed to remember something and paused. Finally, he pinched his right eye socket, put down his right hand, and had a faint smile on his face. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 49, Unbreakable Defense. Amon's clone is his backup to prevent the death of his real body, and it is also his main means of gathering intelligence and finding out the news everywhere he goes. He spreads his time clones, since he currently does not have the ability to forcibly parasitize and control others. His clone can only walk around in the outside world with the same appearance as him. He didn't want others to know his biggest trump card, so the disguise of the clone was necessary. Amon's clones need to wear different styles of clothes and have different hairstyles. Some people who move around the main body and have a lot of contact with the main body's acquaintances even have to deliberately slap themselves in the face a few times to minimize the risk of being recognized. Of course, these are nothing for the clone. The biggest sacrifice is having to change his habits and not be able to wear monocles. This is simply against Amon's nature. Amon, dressed as a businessman, silently watched the two confronting each other. Yan Jin can always get into fights with all kinds of people for various reasons. Amon was not surprised at all that she would start a conflict with others just when she went out to eat. In other words, he will be surprised if there is no accident one day. Rommel, level 40 defense type war soul master. Rommel showed his martial spirit, which was a thin purple translucent light curtain. Level 40? Yan Jin was stunned. "What, are you surprised?" Among the students in the academy who are qualified to participate in the next Soul Master competition, my soul power level is the highest. Rommel took the initiative to report his soul power level, hoping that Yan Jin would retreat in spite of the difficulties. "What's the point of high soul power? You have to fight to know it." Yan Jin is a practical fighter and never looks at superficial data. Big fire breathing. Rommel's smile remained unchanged. The index and middle fingers of his right hand came together. A purple halo flowed, and a thin light curtain appeared on the fingertips. This light curtain was like an insurmountable wall, firmly blocking Yan Jin's attacks. Yan Jin frowned. She felt that this was somewhat similar to Amon's soul power materializing, but the condensed material was tougher. I don't believe it anymore. She increased her soul power output. More magma gushes out from her arms, causing ripples on the light screen. Seeing this, Rommel's second soul ring flickered, and the light screen returned to stability. He just kept one hand stretched out, and the other in his pocket, allowing Yan Jin to attack. What's wrong? Is that all? You haven't had enough to eat, right? I'll give you a hand. He picked his nose with his free left hand and looked down at the rock embers that were only at the height of her chest. Yan Jin began to think about countermeasures after a flurry of hammering to no avail. Putting away the magma, she rushed forward. She threw a tentative punch, and a huge force came from the barrier, causing her arm to hurt. It's useless. So far, no soul master with a lower soul power level than mine has been able to break through my defense, Rommel said calmly. Apart from Amon, this was the first time that Yan Jin was crushed in the hands of a young man. She said angrily, "Which class are you in?" Rommel picked his ears and said disdainfully, "You guess." Yan Jin snorted coldly, "I can find it, even if you don't tell me. When I find a way to deal with you." After Yan Jin left, Rommel breathed a sigh of relief, wiped the sweat from his forehead, and muttered, "Where did that little monster come from? It's no worse than that ice cube from class 1 in the library." Amon placed the open book on the table, leaned back slightly, raised his hand to touch the bottom of his glasses, and whispered softly, "A very interesting ability. Within a certain range, Amon's clone can directly transmit information to the main body or other clones through spirit." He also extended this distance very far through the continuous transmission of time clones, similar to a signal base station. Seeing the battle between Yan Jin and Rommel through the clone's perspective, he became somewhat interested in this young man who looked to be in his 20s not far in front of him. Vidiel was holding a pen and a notebook, sorting out information on noteworthy students in the academy, and analyzing which ones were competitors, and which ones could be wooed. Vidiel suddenly stopped writing and asked, "Amon, have you considered the composition of the team? The Soul Master competition is mainly about team battles, and requires Soul Masters with different tendencies to cooperate in the battle. I'm not worried about the academy competition. With the strength shown by you, Yan Jin, and Lei Yin, as long as the other members are not too bad, it won't be difficult to win. But since you said that your future goal is to win the championship in the Soul Master competition, then the remaining team members must seriously consider it. You are an auxiliary Soul Master. Yan Jin is a powerful attack Soul Master. Lei Yin and I are agility attack Soul Masters. According to a reasonable team composition, we should also need a Soul Master with healing ability, a control Soul Master, and a defense Soul Master. I have met some talented students before, but according to your conception, they don't quite meet the requirements." Amon smiled and shook his head. "Vidiel, don't think so much now. Wait until 2 years later. We will see the result naturally. Just set the general direction. There is still a long time, and a small accident may overturn the original detailed plan, so there is no need to think too detailed before the matter is really close. Do you know a person named Rommel? He should be in the 3rd grade. Wuhan is a kind of light screen with defensive properties." "Rommel? You mean that bad Rommel?" Vidiel blurted out. "It seems you know. Can you tell me in detail?" Amon asked with interest. "Rommel, he is not from a noble family, but he is very talented, and his martial arts spirit also belongs to a very special category. Brady, Elia, Hussein, and Franco are all interested in recruiting him, but at present there is no result yet." Vidiel answered naturally without thinking much. "There is no result, that is to say, there is neither agreement nor clear rejection. Is he waiting for a price?" Amon made this judgment subconsciously. "You can say that, but I think he is more hesitant," Vidiel said in a low voice. "Hesitate?" Vidiel nodded. "Yes, Rommel's ability is very powerful, and there are almost no attacks that he can't block. Well, of course, I mean within the same level, his martial soul is a barrier, and the effects of the first, second, and third soul rings are also to increase the defensive power of the barrier, but the flaw is also obvious. His barrier cannot leave his body, and can only respond to attacks from one direction. Romy doesn't have the ability to entangle his opponents. He can only ensure that he is not defeated. If other teams know his abilities in advance, it will be easy to target them. So when Brady and others invited him, although they promised generous remuneration, they hoped that his choice of the fourth soul ring would be more beneficial to the team, and that goes against Rommel's intentions. Chapter 50. Your monocle is so ugly. For the sake of competition, choosing a soul skill that is not so in line with one's heart. This is simply a lifelong gamble. Amon nodded clearly, understanding Rommel's concerns. Yes, this is related to his future life. Unlike noble soul masters, civilian soul masters do not have so many choices, but the soul master competition is also an opportunity that can determine the fate of his life, so he didn't refuse it directly. Vidiel looked at Amon, hesitated for a moment, and then said, I actually don't think he's a good fit. He's quite annoying, and that's largely due to the fact that he has a mouth. You can think of him as an enhanced version of Bateman, which is not conducive to team unity. Amon stroked his glasses and chuckled. I know. He stood up, put the book back in its place, and walked outside. Vidiel scratched his head and was not prepared to stay any longer. When he was about to get up and leave, a girl with blonde hair and a beautiful face came over. She smiled and said softly in a voice like a silver bell, Vidiel, are you interested in chatting? Alia, put away that disgusting smile of yours. I know exactly what kind of woman you are. What is there to talk about between us? Vidiel replied coldly, I just want to ask, are you still in charge of your team? Alia's smile did not change. Vidiel closed the notebook, leaned forward slightly, and said in a more cautious and serious manner, when did I say this was my team? Alia's smile faded slightly. Sure enough, you can't control such a person. I also heard about that assessment. The new students in your class, Yan Jin and Lei Yin, are probably no longer as powerful as you, and they are obviously led by the man named Amon. According to what I know about you, you will not allow such a small group that can easily get out of control to appear in your team. Unless you are not the leader of this team. I'm very curious, who is Amon? Who can actually make you? Who is so proud, willing to succumb to him? I have investigated and found that none of the famous nobles in the north has such an heir. I also asked Zhu Yaozi, but he said nothing. That makes me even more curious. Vidiel smiled. It seems that Brady and Hussein are not as careful as you in terms of intelligence and intelligence, and they still regard me as their imaginary enemy. So, what you mean by coming to me is, do you mind telling me more about your captain? Maybe he can become our captain. Alia smiled sweetly. Vidiel stared at her in surprise, and said with some vigilance, are you willing to give up your team? Are you willing to give up all your hard work over the past few years? Alia shook her head, and said with a hint of helplessness, leading a team to win the trials can certainly prove your ability, but only if you can win. The captain is the core of a team and the one who has the greatest glory after success. If possible, who would give up? But when the gap in strength is so great that no matter how hard you try, you can't see a chance of winning, it's a wise choice to put down your body and join the opponent. This can also prove that a noble has excellent vision and accurate judgment. Vidiel suddenly chuckled. It's in line with your usual style. Then, let me introduce you to my captain. Rommel walked on the path beside the lake and looked at the sparkling lake. A group of black swans swam leisurely across the lake. They were two adult black swans and a group of cygnets. They are so comfortable and carefree. Rommel picked up a small stone on the ground and threw it towards an adult black swan. Seeing them panicked by this sudden attack, a vicious smile appeared on his face. That's interesting, isn't it? A young man wearing a black classical robe, a black pointed hat, and a monocle on his right eye came to him at some point. Huh? Who are you? I don't think I've seen you in the academy. Rommel raised his eyebrows. My name is Amon, and I just entered school. Amon replied softly. You came to see me specially. Are you okay? Oh, by the way, your aesthetic sense is not very good. That pair of monocles is so ugly. Amon was about to touch his glasses and paused. Then a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Did your teacher teach you that before provoking prey, you should first choose the appropriate target? No, he hasn't had time to say. He only taught me how to provoke wild boars. Rommel grinned with a mocking smile. Amon snapped his fingers and pointed at the black swan family on the lake. You see, they swim so leisurely in the water. So we can draw a conclusion that soaking in the lake can get rid of worries. Since you have hesitation, anxiety, and troubles in your heart, why not go down and calm down? Maybe you can find a solution. Rommel's thinking was affected and his thinking speed became extremely slow, but Amon's words seemed very credible. Under this inexplicable trust, he nodded. Maybe this is a good idea. Step by step, he walked towards the lake. At the last moment, he came to his senses. What kind of bullshit logic is this? But it was too late. He missed the mark and fell into the lake. The cold lake water covered his head, making him tremble. After choking on the water for a few times, Rommel surfaced and cursed in a low voice. Shit, he wanted to go ashore, but as soon as he grabbed the vegetation on the shore, Amon snapped his fingers again. So he fell back into the lake. Get up, fall down, get up, fall down. He repeated this several times in a row. When he saw Amon was about to snap his fingers again, he finally couldn't help but shout, "Stop, I give up." Rommel climbed ashore with difficulty, panting. He was wet all over, and the lake water slid down his face and dripped from his chin. He wiped his face and said with some horror, "Damn, what kind of ability do you have?" "A little trick that is not worth mentioning," Amon said with a smile. Rommel squeezed his clothes and squeezed out a lot of water. He said very naturally, "The sun was too strong just now, and I was a little dazzled." After a closer look, "You have quite good taste. Look at this monocle. It is so elegant. Only the most handsome and elegant gentleman can wear it. I mean, it suits you very well, influencing other people's minds and controlling other people's actions. This is simply the power of the devil." Rommel muttered in his heart. The sarcasm on his face was put away, and he asked with the most sunny and gentle smile, "So, classmate, what do you want to talk to me about?" End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.